Chapter 982. In the Divine Prefecture, the alien races descended. The war caused immeasurable damage to the Divine Prefecture, resulting in countless casualties. After the war, the kings of the alien races left, leaving behind the crying people of the Divine Prefecture. The heavens couldn't bear it and poured down sorrowful rain. The rain poured down, creating deep ravines. This catastrophe came without warning, but it was like a storm that destroyed the hope of everyone in the world. Under the pouring rain, the elder turned around and left with his walking stick. Young Master Xiaobai walked behind the girl, pushed the wheelchair and followed him. In the barren city, Jian Luiying took over the dead second brother. His body trembled, and his teary eyes couldn't hide his sadness. Ning Chen's heart hurt like a sharp knife. He couldn't say a word. 3 days later, Ning Chen walked out of the barren city. His eyes covered all his emotions, and he became strong again. "Follow me," Prince Yan said calmly in front of the barren city and walked forward. Ning Chen went forward and carried the sword rack on his back, following silently. In the continuous mountain range, 2 figures were walking over. In front of a large waterfall that fell from the sky, the king stopped and said indifferently, "Let's do it here." Behind him, Ning Chen nodded. He walked to the side and put down the sword rack, waiting quietly for orders. "Pick up your sword," Prince Yan said calmly. Ning Chen was silent. After a while he waved his right hand. In the flowing light, the famous sword of Taoism appeared again, shining brightly. "Righteous Qi. This sword can't be covered in dust." Prince Yan saw the sword in the former's hand and grasped it. Not far away, the sword rack moved slightly, and red light shone. The red sword flew into the king's hand. "Hold your sword tightly and move with me." As soon as he finished, Prince Yan waved his hand. In the sky, the Supreme State appeared, and blood-red lightning filled the air. The Supreme State on the sword descended majestically. The king's sword moved, and blood-red lightning filled the sky. The Supreme State on the sword overflowed, bringing the knowing destiny body beside it, and moving with the sword. The king taught the sword, and the sword aura filled the air. He taught from the most basic sword moves, simple and unadorned. The Taoist sword in Ning Chen's hand moved with him. The sword bone, sword will, sword aura, and sword sense kept rising. They went from rejecting each other to merging into his body. The desolate city sword and the king's sword filled each other. Blood exploded around Ning Chen, dyeing his clothes red. In the extreme realm, Prince Yan saw the blood mist erupting from the former's body. He frowned and stopped. "What happened to your sword bone?" "I'm fine." Ning Chen endured the intense pain in his body and said, "Senior, please continue. I can endure it." Yanqing Prince did not ask any more questions. If someone else's sword bone wanted to merge with his body, he would have to endure the pain himself. The king's sword moved again, but this time it did not stop. The sword moved, crisscrossing in the extreme realm of the sword, surging like thunder, dazzling the eyes. Ning Chen's body moved along with the king's sword. Every time he swung the sword bone would fuse into his body a little bit more, and the pain would increase a little bit more. The dripping sweat mixed with the overflowing blood, drenching his clothes over and over again. Ning Chen's hand that was holding the sword did not loosen at all. Only after losing it once did he know how rare it was to be able to hold a sword again. He could not lose to himself, otherwise, he would have failed Jian Air before he died. The breath of humanity rang in the extreme realm. Prince Yan listened to the sound of the former's sword, and the extreme realm of the sword increased. Since he had the determination and will, as a senior, he would do his best to fulfill his wish. After 100 moves, the king's sword suddenly changed. Its killing intent exploded, and it swept past quickly. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He instinctively waved the sword in his hand to block the king's sword. With a loud bang, the king's sword shook off the former's sword. The sword did not change at all, and it continued to sweep forward. The sword went in half an inch and stopped. Prince Yan looked at the young man in front of him and said calmly, "From now on, your sword is not allowed to have any impurities. Otherwise, I will destroy it again. The Divine Prefecture no longer needs you to protect it. Your mission is over." Ning Chen listened without saying a word. After a while, he nodded lightly. "Practice by yourself until you can feel the sword breath. I will go to the imperial city of the Xia dynasty and return in 10 days. With that, Prince Yan waved his hand and collected the sword rack on the ground. Then he walked into the distance. Ningchen stood in front of the waterfall and looked at the sword in his hand silently. The senior was right. The divine prefecture no longer needed his protection. He was not qualified. Not to mention the kings and emperors of the foreign races. Even the most ordinary cultivators of the fourth realm were difficult for him to fight head-on. If the senior had not returned in time, the divine prefecture would have been doomed. In front of absolute power, all schemes were useless. His sword was not enough to protect the people he cherished. The rumbling sound of the waterfall drowned out the breath of the sword. In front of the waterfall, Sui raised her sword again. It was so simple that there were no more complicated moves. Just as knowing destiny returned to the divine prefecture, countless cultivators flew out of the space cracks that had been cut open in the mist of the Red Luan galaxy. In just a few days, cultivators of the 100 clans descended on the mortal world one after another. Fourth plane cultivators and king-level cultivators emerged one after another. However, there was no one above the king level other than the King of Scales. In the Battle of the Divine Prefecture, the legend of the Xia dynasty shocked the 100 races. The existence of the unfamiliar elder of the human race became a taboo. Even among the 100 races, there were only a handful of cultivators who were comparable to the emperors of the 100 races. No one dared to offend them. Cultivators of the 100 races appeared in all the galaxies. They occupied one land after another in an overbearing manner, and established their own sections. The era of the 100 races fighting for supremacy came so suddenly that everyone, from the sex to the common people, had to accept this cruel and chaotic world. Kings were overseeing the various divine lands. Due to the prestige of the unfamiliar elder of the human race, no large-scale battles were launched for the time being. However, the 100 races were powerful, and the humans were weak. The unequal distribution of benefits was clear. The war of the 100 races dividing the humans' territories and resources seemed inevitable. In the Ziwei galaxy, the divine capital mountain and the purple scale abyss were facing each other from a distance. The two powerful races with emperors chose the Ziwei galaxy, which was closest to the inner realm, to continue the war that had lasted for thousands of years. In the purple scale abyss, Di Mingtian stood in front of the abyss and quietly looked at the vast starry sky in front of him. Light flashed in his eyes. "Your Highness." A man in purple walked over and bowed respectfully. "It's time." Di Mingtian came back to his senses and nodded. He turned around and walked toward the abyss behind him. After coming out for so long, he had wasted too much time. Now it was time to make up for these 100 years. In the purple scale abyss, among the new dangerous lands, Di Mingtian walked through them. An hour later he stopped in front of a jade pool that did not look too big. In front of the dragonization pool, the purple scale king turned around and looked at the figure walking over. He calmly said, "This is the dragonization pool water that your grandfather specially brought. Don't disappoint your grandfather and father." "Yes." Di Mingtian bowed respectfully and walked into the dragonization pool step by step. At the same time, in an unknown divine realm, a withered old man stood quietly. He looked at the sorrowful people, and the fatigue in his turbid eyes became even stronger. The 100 races had appeared, and the dark age of the human world had arrived. If the humans could not survive this calamity, it would be the true eternal night. "Teacher." Behind him, a young girl with bright eyes and white teeth walked over in a wheelchair. She looked at the old man in front of her, and called out softly. The old man turned around and looked at the young girl in the wheelchair. His voice was hoarse as he asked, "Peacock, how is it?" "I don't feel anything," the young girl said truthfully. The old man nodded and said, "It's normal that you don't feel anything when you meet for the first time. In the future, you will have many chances to meet. Feelings can be cultivated slowly. There's no rush." "Teacher, why do you think so highly of that person? Whether it's talent or strength, this person should not be the best choice." In the wheelchair, Peacock's beautiful face showed a hint of confusion. Talent is no longer a decisive factor after reaching the fourth realm. As for strength, no one is born invincible. He has only cultivated for a short time. It's already not bad that he can reach this level, the old man said softly. Teacher's assumption is that this person can enter the fourth realm. However, if he can't enter this realm, talent is an insurmountable gap. No one can change it, Peacock said seriously. The old man was silent. After a long while, he sighed softly and said, I only saw a glimpse of the future from this person's growth. No one can guarantee what the future will be like. I will not force you. The choice is in your hands. I can't decide for you about marriage. In the wheelchair, Peacock nodded and said, Teacher, don't worry. If this person can enter the fourth realm as you say, then I am willing to support him with all my strength. However, if he can't, then I can only choose someone else. The old man nodded and did not say anything more. He turned around and looked at the world again. The sadness in his eyes was hard to hide. The match between Peacock and man will always be the king of the world. In this era, they needed an absolute powerhouse to intimidate the 100 tribes. He chose that young man. However, whether he could do it or not still depended on the young man's own ability. He would not interfere too much. Everyone's path should be walked by themselves. That young man's will was so strong that it far surpassed his peers. This was the most important quality on the path of cultivation. The path of cultivation was long and no one could have a smooth journey. It was easy to survive one blow, but what about 10, 100, 1,000? It was not easy to bear the weight of all living beings. Therefore, he had to be strong enough. Even if there were thousands of disasters, he could not be weak for a moment. Although it was very cruel, this was reality. If he could not do it, then he could only find someone else. In the inner realm, in the eastern divine land, in the endless mountains, there was someone practicing the sword. Just like 100 years ago, he had nothing and had to start from the very basics. The cold light on the sword reflected off the moon. Day after day, year after year. In front of the waterfall, the king stood quietly and looked at the junior practicing the sword. Even though the progress was slow, there was no trace of urgency on his face. Chapter 983. In the Ziwei Galaxy, between the three divine Yangs, above the underworld continent, the Yama kings walked out and looked at the changing starry sky. They thought that after destroying the demon palace, peace would be restored to the human world. They didn't expect an even greater disaster to descend. The 100 races were in chaos and the world was in chaos. Let's part ways here. In front of the divine restriction, Yixuan Miao raised his hand and took off the evil face mask. He looked at the Yama kings and said calmly, in the current situation, it was no longer suitable for the Yama kings of the underworld to appear in the human world. They needed to return to their own path. See you again. The Yama kings took off their masks and revealed familiar faces. They said goodbye to each other and left in different directions. Mistress Mu. Ener looked at the woman beside her and was confused. Where are we going? To find your master. Mu Qingxue calmly replied and looked in the direction of the inner world. At the same time, on the divine machine peak, red maples drifted in the wind. Under the fiery red sky, a man who had knelt for 3 years, slowly stood up. At that moment, above the 9 heavens, blood clouds gathered. An incomparable calamity descended to test the cultivators. A man looked at the sky and clenched her left hand. The purple cloud divine sword hummed and was unsheathed. Light shot into the sky. The exquisite heart and exquisite sword faced the first calamity of the human world. Sword aura filled the air, and they were not afraid at all. This is... At that moment, all the fourth realm foreign race cultivators sensed something and looked towards the Shinji peak. Fourth realm. And it was the aura of a human. Did the human race finally have a fourth realm cultivator? In Jinsi City, on the second floor of the Dawn Moon Chang. And the Dawn Moon Tower Master stood in front of the window and looked at the Shinji peak in the distance. Shinji, your successor did not disappoint you. You can rest assured above the 9 heavens. 100 years ago, the Jiming Marquis from the inner world opened the ancient battlefield and replenished the source energy of the world. 100 years later, the first person to enter the fourth realm was also from the inner world. The people from the Nether King's Pure Land were truly impressive. You reap what you sow. Jiming Marquis' hard work had paid off. In the inner realm, in the divine great land, in a mountain range that stretched for tens of thousands of miles, the white-clothed figure holding the sword was completely isolated from the world. She returned to the mortal world and experienced the origin of the sword. The autumn wind was bleak and the fallen leaves were scattered everywhere. Among the falling autumn leaves, Bai danced with her sword. She was as graceful as a swan, as graceful as a swimming dragon. Her sword hummed softly, and the sound was earth-shattering. In the first year, every slash and stab was simple but well practiced. The fallen leaves that filled the sky were sliced apart by the sword without any hesitation. It was a simple sword, simple and unadorned, without any impurities. After removing the burden, the sword returned to its original state. The pure sword looked no different from an ordinary cultivator. Martial for the sake of the sword, the world's sword Tao. Day after day after day, Bai waved the sword in her hand as if she didn't know fatigue. The sword hummed again and again. It was filled with longing, reminiscence, and gratitude. In front of the waterfall, Prince Yin looked at the dancing sword in front of him quietly. An undetectable gratification flashed in the depths of his eyes. 100 years ago, the Xia kingdom was in danger. That young man picked up his sword to protect the Xia kingdom. Although his sword improved quickly, it was too heavy and mottled. 100 years later, the 100 races were in chaos. The young man of the past had grown up. However, the world was no longer something that a young man could support. The divine prefecture was still the original divine prefecture. However, it now needed a stronger guardian. If he wanted to continue protecting the people he treasured, his sword had to be strong enough to touch the kings and emperors of the 100 races. However, before that, he had to learn to let go of all his burdens. Autumn left and winter came. Snow filled the sky. The waterfall gradually froze, hanging upside down like a mirror. It was mesmerizing. In front of the waterfall, snowflakes swirled in the air. The swordsman's sword was even sharper. His figure was illusory, and his sword chi was like frost. The dancing sword danced in the sky, crisscrossing in the snow. The sword entered the waterfall and cut open many smooth openings. In this year he learned the intricacies of swordsmanship. Every move was ordinary. In the second year spring and autumn flew by. Sword chi glowed. Between heaven and earth, the sound of the sword was ear-splitting. It was like thunder, causing people's hearts to tremble. Birds flew into the forest after being startled. The shocking sound of the sword became more and more ear-piercing. The heaven and earth trembled, and the mountains and rivers shook. In the second winter, the sound of the sword gradually stopped. The winter thunder stopped, and the birds and beasts returned to their nests. In the third year, in the fourth year, year after year, time passed so quickly. The sword in the swordsman's hand also became faster and faster. Gradually, it could not be seen clearly. In the 10th year, the swordsman's figure gradually slowed down. Most of his sword chi was also restrained. His sword moves were unpredictable, as if he had forgotten what he had learned in the past 10 years. In front of the waterfall, the green sword in the sword rack beside Prince Yen trembled. It felt the sword in front of it, and asked to be unsheathed. Feeling the breath of the green sword, Prince Yen looked away and said calmly, "Wait a little longer. It's not time yet." Hearing this, the green sword gradually stopped its sound and calmed down. In the 13th year, around knowing destiny, the sword moved without a sound. Although the sword moved, it seemed to be hidden between heaven and earth. In the mountains and rivers, there was no other movement except for the sound of the waterfall and the roars of the birds and beasts. In this year, the green sword sounded again, but it was suppressed by Prince Yen again. In the 15th year, it was the season of spring for all things. Everything was unraveled, and the waterfall fell with a deafening sound. He was surprised to see a plain dress flashing by. With a swing of the sword, the waterfall went against the flow and rushed to the 9 heavens. In this year, the breath of the sword surrounded the swordsman. It touched his heart, but the swordsman still could not hear it. In the 18th year, another 3 years had passed. The breath of the sword filled the mountains and rivers. The swordsman seemed to have felt it. When he wielded the sword, his eyes were always blank. He could not hear or understand it clearly. Not far away, Prince Yan's face gradually became serious. 100 years ago, he could not hear the breath of the sword because his heart was too chaotic. Now the opportunity was in front of him again. Whether he could grasp it or not depended on his luck. 1 year, 2 years. From this year onwards, the blank look on Ning Chen's face became more and more obvious. He forgot the past and immersed himself in the sword and the way of the sword. Unknowingly, another 5 years had passed. In the 23rd year, the mountains had changed. Between the mountains and rivers, fierce beasts ran and often appeared. However, no beast dared to approach the waterfall. The breath of the sword in the air became stronger and stronger. It was like a natural barrier, blocking all beasts thousands of feet away. 10 years. Prince Yan looked at the breath of the sword around Ning Chen, and his eyes became more and more serious. In the 15th year, he could already feel the breath of the sword. A whole 10 years had passed, but he still could not hear it clearly. Compared to A Man, his talent was indeed much lower. However, this was his only chance. If he missed it, his 25 years of hard work would be completely wasted. In terms of cultivation, he lacked too much talent. The only thing he was good at was the sword. If he could not reach the peak of the sword, then in the future, it would be impossible for him to reach the 4th level. In the winter of the 28th year, a white-clothed figure gradually stopped in front of the waterfall. He looked at the waterfall and stood there for the entire winter. Not far away, Prince Yan quietly looked at the young man in front of him and sighed. In the end, talent was indispensable. It had been 13 years. It was really too long. In the distance, the sound of a wheelchair squeaking as it pressed down on a branch could be heard. In the falling snow, a young girl with bright eyes and white teeth appeared. She was sitting in a wheelchair, but her expression was calm and tranquil. She looked like a goddess who had descended to the mortal world. Beside the young girl, a white-clothed figure followed quietly. He had a delicate face and looked like a scholar. His aura was restrained, and no one could sense any aura of a martial artist. In front of the waterfall, Prince Yan sensed the two coming from afar. He looked over and said calmly, "Wait a moment. It has been 28 years. Now that the 100 races are in chaos, the world needs your power to deter the 100 races. I hope you can consider the big picture." In the wheelchair, Peacock looked at the king in front of her and said, "Wait a moment." Prince Yan was not moved at all, and said again. Peacock frowned and said, "Sir, 28 years have passed. You should know that this matter has already been decided. Please make a decision." I said, "Wait a moment." In front of the waterfall, Prince Yan's eyes flashed coldly as he said coldly. The king was angry. The wind and snow in the sky suddenly stopped. The entire world became still as if it was frozen. After a while, the wind and snow fell again. The world returned to normal as if nothing had happened. Beside the wheelchair, young Master Xiaobai's expression turned serious. He reached out and pressed on Peacock's shoulder, stopping her from continuing. "Brother Yan, how much longer do you need?" Young Master Xiaobai looked at the king in front of him and asked seriously. Prince Yan looked over at the young figure in front of the waterfall. After a while, his eyes showed a hint of emotion and said, 3 months. "Okay." Young Master Xiaobai nodded and said, "Then we will wait another 3 months." In the wheelchair, Peacock also looked over and quietly stared at the figure in front of the waterfall. There was no prejudice or abnormality in her beautiful eyes. She understood enough about this person. With the talent of a mortal, he broke through layer after layer of obstacles and stood at the pinnacle of martial arts. This kind of willpower is indeed something that few could reach. She gave him enough respect. However, this did not mean that she approved of him. Talent, effort, and achievements were often not equal. If he did not enter the 4th realm, he would not have the right to stand in this chaotic world. It may be cruel, but this is the reality. In front of the waterfall, young Master Xiaobai walked forward step by step and stood beside the king. He looked forward and said, "Is this person that important to you?" Prince Yan didn't say anything. However, Wu Yan's attitude already said it all. "Brother Yan, you should know that in this chaotic world of the 100 races, there are many strong people. Every moment of delay will worsen the chaos. Compared to the lives of the world, The gains and losses of one person are sometimes not important. Young Master Xiaobai said seriously. Prince Yan retracted his gaze and looked at the people beside him. He said calmly, I do not know about the lives of the world. The reason why I agreed to help you is because you helped the inner realm. However, there are exceptions to everything. This person is that exception. Compared to him, the safety of the world is not worth mentioning. Chapter 984. In the cold night, the moon hung high in the sky. Under the moon, the four silhouettes were silent like stone statues. It was so quiet that it made one's heart palpitate. The sword aura in the mountains grew stronger and stronger. Hundreds of beasts prostrated themselves and trembled. The Taoist sword was impermanent. Heaven and earth resonated. The simple sword had an indescribable pressure that shook one's heart. In front of the waterfall, Prince Yan watched quietly and waited. Just like in the past 28 years, he was not impatient at all. Beside him, young Master Xiaobai's gaze kept wandering between the two. Legend had it that this swordsman of the divine prefecture was a heartless swordsman, but he could not bear to part with the 9th disciple of Mahist. It was hard to understand. Not far away, on the wheelchair, Peacock also looked ahead quietly. Her beautiful eyes did not have any ripples. The 3-month period would soon pass. The chaos of the 100 tribes required the help of this legend of Xia. As for whether the 9th disciple of Mahist could reach the heights of the 100 tribes, it was still unknown. 100 years ago, when the ancient battlefield opened, the origin of heaven and earth was replenished. A group of 4th realm cultivators was destined to appear in the human world. However, there would not be many of them. Who could seize this opportunity would depend on their own luck. A night passed. In the east, the morning sun shone, gradually dispelling the extreme coldness of the night. A breeze blew, and snowflakes flew. In the wind and snow, the white-clothed figure looked at the rising sun in the east. A trace of golden light was reflected in her confused eyes. In an instant, the wind and snow in front of the waterfall were chaotic. Beams of sword chi shot into the sky and rushed up to the 9 levels of heaven. The heavenly path was vast, and there were thousands of paths. The swordsman's sword did not fear ascending the heavenly path. The man and the sword breathed together. The man was fearless, and the sword was fearless. There was only one at the peak. On the wheelchair, Peacock's expression changed. After 28 years, did the king finally succeed in teaching the sword? He succeeded. Beside the king, young Master Xiaobai looked at the sword light in the sky and said, although he wasted a lot of time, it was not easy for him to do it with his talent. I have never looked down on him. As he spoke, Prince Yan walked forward step by step. He looked at the sky and said calmly, what did you hear? A request for battle. Ning Chen said softly. Prince Yan nodded and said, the way of the sword. From now on, you will enter the palace for the first time. Senior, thank you for your teachings. Ning Chen turned around and bowed respectfully as he said, now, take a good look and understand as much as you can. Prince Yan said calmly. He waved his hand and a green sword flew past the sword rack not far away. Wind and snow fell from the sky. The extreme state descended and red lightning surged. The sword moved, the wind and thunder roared, the green robe wielded the sword, the 10,000 laws wailed, crawling to the extreme. In the extreme realm, Ning Chen looked at the red lightning around him seriously. A serious look flashed in his eyes. He had never seen such a sword realm before. The sword had become one, and it was unique. After over 100 moves, heaven and earth rumbled. Within the extreme realm, the red lightning became more and more dazzling. Wherever the red lightning passed, 10,000 spells collapsed, unable to withstand its might. Clang! With a hum, the green sword returned to its scabbard. Prince Yan waved his hand to disperse the extreme state on the sword. He turned around and looked at the young man behind him. He asked calmly, how much did you see? 5%. Ning Chen answered honestly. It's enough. From today onwards, your sword is not allowed to leave its scabbard for 10 years. Yes. Ning Chen didn't have any doubts and answered respectfully. Okay, I'm leaving. The world is so big. You should go out and see. After that, Prince Yin didn't say anything else. He waved his right hand and put away the sword rack. Then he walked forward. Not far away, Peacock, Young Master, and Little White followed. Soon, they disappeared into the wind and snow. In front of the waterfall, Ningchen looked at the backs of the three in silence. Half a day later, in front of the waterfall, the white-clothed figure left. 28 years of being sealed forever. In the divine great land, two beautiful figures walked side by side. They had searched for many years, but they still couldn't find the person they met. Master's wife, could Ningchen have left the inner world? Iner looked at the woman beside her and asked. Mu Qingxue stopped and looked at the divine great land in front of them. He said softly, maybe. Let's keep looking. If we still can't find him, we'll go to the outer world. Okay. Iner obediently nodded her head and replied. In the Ziwei galaxy, between the three divine young planets, a white-clothed figure appeared. She looked at the divine restriction in front of her and walked in. In the underworld continent, the majestic Yama-ten halls reached into the clouds. Ningchen walked forward and looked at the empty halls. Emotions flashed through his eyes. 28 years. They had indeed left. He walked into the imperial hall. The empty hall was now empty. The Yama kings had left, and the underworld was empty. After the demonic calamity, the 100 races were in chaos. This calamity was no longer something they could control. At least, they couldn't do anything now. After staying for half a day, Ningchen walked out of the underworld. He raised his hand to seal the original planet, and then turned to leave. In the various regions of the universe, the 100 races stood in great numbers. Many forbidden lands appeared out of nowhere. In the past 30 years, the 100 races had gradually gained a foothold in the outer world, and became the rulers of the universe. The human race was weak. Facing the powerful 100 races, they were completely silent and at a disadvantage. On Shinji Peak, maple leaves fell. Every autumn, the peak would be covered in red. It was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. However, the beautiful figure on the peak could no longer be seen. Ever since the Fourth Realm calamity descended on Shinji Peak more than 20 years ago, the 100 races had sent people here more than once. However, they all left empty-handed. The first true Fourth Realm human in hundreds of years shocked the 100 races, and gave the human race a glimmer of hope. Originally, the arrival of the 100 races had basically destroyed all hope for the human race. The 100 races were too powerful. There were countless Third Realms and many Fourth Realms. There were even king-level cultivators. Such terrifying power made it impossible for the human race to resist. However, just as everyone was in despair, the Fourth Realm calamity descended on Shinji Peak. The first Fourth Realm human cultivator appeared. The world watched, and the panic in their hearts gradually calmed down. Since the first Fourth Realm human cultivator appeared, there would be a second, a third. One day, the human race would be strong enough to fight against the 100 races. In the midst of the Red Phoenix Galaxy, there was a huge spatial crack that stretched for thousands of miles. Cultivators kept appearing from the passage connecting the two regions. Their auras were abnormally powerful, striking fear in others. In the spatial crack, a vast and boundless continent floated. Its territory was more than 1,000,000 miles long. The heavenly demon realm was the true source of chaos. It was also known as the primordial demon realm. In ancient times, it had once led troops to the heavens beyond heaven and brought chaos to the world, bringing great trouble to the four immortal realms. During the chaos in the galaxy, the Lord of the Eastern Immortal Realm, the strongest cultivator in the world at that time, personally took action. She went deep into the 100 races formation, and forcefully killed all the royal cultivators of the heavenly demons, dealing a heavy blow to the source of the 100 races' chaos. After the heavenly demons were heavily injured, the Queen Mother of the West took action. The Queen Mother of the West cut open the galaxy and buried the passage between the two realms in the heavenly river, cutting off the primordial demon realm's reinforcements. With the two lords of the immortal realms taking action, the chaos of the 100 races gradually subsided. After the efforts of the four immortal realms, the remaining 100 races in the human world were gradually wiped out. Today, the 100 races invaded again, but the human world no longer had the protection of the four immortal realms. The future was so dark that no one could see the light. Outside the starfield's mist, a figure filled with demonic chi swept over. In an instant, he disappeared into the spatial crack. Xian Luo, a member of the heavenly demon royal clan who had once stayed in the human world, had returned to the primordial demon realm today to find his starting point. Not long after Xian Luo entered the spatial crack, a silhouette appeared outside the starfield. She looked at the entrance to the primordial demon realm in front of her. After a moment of silence, she strode in. A frog in a well would never know how high the heavens were. Perhaps he should take a look at the world where the powerful 100 races resided. What was it like? In the spatial tunnel, flowing light flashed. The silhouette disappeared in a flash as she sped forward. After an unknown period of time, a blinding light appeared in front of her. Ning Chen's expression turned serious. He took a step forward and sped up. Walking out of the primordial demon realm, the silhouette saw a boundless wasteland. Beasts galloped and ferocious birds tore through the air. It was as if the primordial era had reappeared, and danger was everywhere. Suddenly, a huge black shadow descended from the heavens. It was so fast that it swooped down in the blink of an eye. A huge eagle tore through the air. It was a divine bird with the bloodline of an ancient wild beast. When it saw the prey below, it did not hesitate and directly swooped down. In the wasteland, Ningchen looked at the huge eagle descending from the sky. His eyes narrowed. He raised his hand and twirled the grass. Sword chi tore through the air. The grass turned into a sword and soared into the sky. In the next moment, a shrill cry resounded through the wasteland. Sword chi slashed across the wings of the huge eagle, and blood spurted out. The huge eagle flapped its wings. However, the blood stimulated the ferocious nature of the bird. It opened its huge mouth and a terrifying suction force came, swallowing the humans below. Cultivation is not easy. Please cherish your life. Ningchen said coldly. Murderous intent exploded from his body. A powerful pressure swept through the entire wasteland. Dust and sand filled the air. The huge eagle's body froze, and fear appeared in its eyes. In an instant, it flapped its wings and quickly flew into the sky. Ningchen did not care about the short interlude. He retracted his gaze and looked into the distance. Light flashed in his eyes. Even though there was still some distance between him and the 100 races, he could still feel the powerful auras coming from the distance. They were as deep and unfathomable as the ocean. Other than wanting to see the true power of the 100 races, there were also two things that he had always been concerned about. These two things were related to the 100 races. One was the origin of the phoenix body, and the other was the origin of the demon body. Most of the power of the demon body came from Xian Luo, and Xian Luo was a member of the heavenly demon clan. It was even very likely that he was a member of the royal clan. Other than the demon body, he also had many doubts about the inheritance of the phoenix body. He had obtained the origin of the phoenix from the four extremities. However, whether it was in the inner realm or the outer realm, there were no records of the disappearance of the phoenix. It was said that the 100 races coexisted in the primordial demon realm. He just did not know if the phoenix clan existed among the 100 races. The inheritance of the gods and the cultivation of the secret techniques were very important. Back then, he had been unable to defeat the vermilion bird because it was born with the secret techniques of the vermilion bird clan. His understanding of the origin of the phoenix was limited to the speed of the world. Chapter 985. In the primordial demon realm, the cold moon had just risen. On the wilderness, a white-clothed figure walked slowly. After walking for a day, he still could not make it out. In the night sky, the roars of beasts shook the sky. The dangerous wilderness had always been a forbidden area for women and children of the 100 races. In the distance, the deep roars of beasts sounded. Soon, hundreds of wolves rushed over and surrounded the knowing destiny cultivator. In the wilderness, Ningchen stood quietly and looked at the wolves carefully approaching him. His expression did not change. Behind the pack of wolves, a huge two-headed wolf stared at the white-clothed figure in the middle of the pack. Its cold eyes were full of fierceness and vigilance. After standing still for a while, Ningchen did not stay any longer, and walked directly toward the leader of the wolves. In an instant, hundreds of wolves howled and rushed toward the figure in front of them like a flood. Be careful. At this moment, the sound of arrows piercing through the air came from afar. One after another, they shot into the pack of wolves, bringing with them a waterfall of blood. Ningchen stopped and looked in the direction where the arrows came from. A strange look flashed in his eyes. Amidst the explosive sounds of air being torn apart, numerous figures were rushing over. Before long, they were already 1,000 feet away from the group. There were 5 strange-looking men and women. Their appearances and clothes were never seen before. The 2 small horns on their heads showed that they were not humans. When the 5 alien race men and women arrived, a hint of fear appeared in the eyes of the 2-headed wolf. It howled to the sky and turned to run away. The pack of wolves accepted the order, and the team dispersed, running in all directions. Little brother, are you okay? The leader of the 5 alien race men and women, a middle-aged man in blue, asked with concern as he looked at the white-clothed young man in front of him. I'm fine. Thank you for saving me. Ningchen observed the 5 people in front of him. Alien races were not rare in the outer heavens or the inner world. However, most of the alien races outside the primordial demon realm were hostile to the human race. The 100 races invaded the Empyrean realm to fight for territory and resources. It was not strange that they were hostile. While Ningchen was observing the 5 people, the 5 alien men and women were also observing the young man in front of them. Judging from the young man's clothes and appearance, he shouldn't be a local. They just didn't know what race he was and where he came from. The 5 non-human race men and women did not suspect that the young man in front of them was a human. In the primitive mystic realm, the human race was the lowest race. They were all enslaved by the king families or the sovereign families. The young man in front of them had an extraordinary aura. He did not look like a slave. As for appearance, there were many races among the 100 races that looked similar to the human race. This was not a rare thing. Little brother, why are you still wandering around here at this time? There are many ferocious beasts roaming around at night. It's really too dangerous. The middle-aged man in blue spoke again and reminded him. I got lost and couldn't find my way out. Ningchen smiled faintly and replied. Beside the middle-aged man, the 4 men and women looked at each other and nodded secretly. It was indeed easy to get lost in the wilderness. This young man did not look like a sinister person. His appearance was born from his heart. The eyes of the person in front of them were clean, making them feel very comfortable. Little brother, you got lost. How about this? Little brother, you can walk with us. Our village is nearby. We will reach it very quickly. The middle-aged man said gently. Ningchen was silent for a moment. Then he nodded lightly and said, Then I will have to trouble you. Little brother, you are too kind. The middle-aged man replied with a smile. Then he turned around and led the way for the young man. Ningchen stepped forward to catch up with them, following the 5 of them. Under the night sky, the 6 of them moved faster and faster. The 5 non-human race men and women obviously had some foundation in cultivation. As their figures flashed by, the sound of the air breaking could be heard. Ningchen followed behind casually. He revealed a bit of his cultivation, but did not expose it completely. The middle-aged man in the lead saw that the young man behind him could keep up, and did not think much about it. The primitive demon realm valued martial arts. Even normal people would have some cultivation. This was not strange. After half an hour, in the distance, fire burned the sky. Before they even got close, they could already feel the heat waves brought by the fire. Seeing this, Ningchen's eyes narrowed. Something was not right. As expected, when the 5 of them saw the fire in the distance, their expressions changed drastically. Without a word, they rushed forward. Ningchen followed behind and also sped up, rushing forward. After 15 minutes, in front of the village, the 6 of them stopped. Looking at the fire in front of them, their faces were filled with shock. Qingzhu. The middle-aged man came back to his senses and rushed into the fire like a madman, looking for his wife and daughter. The other 4 also rushed forward without saying anything, each of them rushing towards their own houses. In front of the fire, Ningchen looked at the burning fire in front of him quietly. In the fire, The 5 non-human race men and women knocked away pieces of firewood, frantically looking for their relatives who might have survived. Help! In the fire, there was a faint cry. It was weak, low, and miserable. It made one shudder. At this moment, in the distance, a group of people wearing red sword robes suddenly appeared. They were chanting spells in the language of the heavens. In an instant, thunder roared from the 9 heavens. Thunder broke through the sky and a heavy rain fell from the sky. As the rain fell, in the burning village, the fire gradually extinguished. The traveler walked over with the Saruo sword on his back. With a slash, the wooden houses where there were survivors were instantly destroyed. The sword light cut open a path for survival, and scattered the remaining flames. Human race? Seeing this person, Ningchen squinted his eyes. Was his feeling wrong? This traveler did not seem to be a non-human race. The traveler walked over and bowed to the young man in front of him. Then, he walked towards the wooden houses in front of him to save the survivors. Not long after, the other 5 people appeared in black. They could not hide the sadness and depression on their faces. Obviously, they did not find their relatives. In the destroyed wooden house, the traveler looked at the little girl who was burned beyond recognition. He put his palms together and sighed. Then he raised his hand and pointed at the little girl's head, prolonging her life. The swordsman and the traveler's true yuan were like rain, endlessly entering the little girl's body. However, in front of the gates of hell, even Buddha could not defy the heavens. The little girl's life force was still flowing away. What happened? What the hell is going on? The middle-aged man stepped forward, shook the little girl, and asked anxiously. So many soldiers. The little girl opened her eyes, which were full of fear. She only had time to say 4 words before her eyes gradually dimmed. Her life force dissipated, and her soul returned to heaven and earth. The traveler looked helpless. He reached out and touched the little girl's eyes, closing them for her. The middle-aged man was shocked, and the sadness in his eyes grew stronger. Soldiers? How could there be soldiers? The only woman among the 5 people said in a low voice. This is the jurisdiction of King Shiri. If there are soldiers, they must be from Shiri City. Another young man said with a cold expression. King Shiri. The middle-aged man's face changed dramatically when he heard that. He shouted. Don't talk nonsense. Big brother. The young man said anxiously. We can't let go of the revenge of our wife and child. Don't make wild guesses before we find out the truth. The middle-aged man suppressed the sadness in his heart and said in a low voice. King Shiri? Ningchen's eyes narrowed when he heard this name. In the primal demon realm, the title of king couldn't be used casually. This meant that there was a terrifying king-level powerhouse not far away. He had watched the battle in the inner realm from the side. He had personally experienced how powerful a king-level powerhouse was. It was a power that was difficult to resist. At least he was far from being able to resist it now. Benefactor, are you a human? Just as Ningchen was thinking, the traveler asked politely. Ningchen heard this, and killing intent flashed through his eyes. A moment later, it disappeared. Grandmaster, why do you ask? Ningchen looked at the traveler in front of him and said calmly. Benefactor, don't worry. I'm from the human race. Seeing that you don't look like someone from a different race, I asked you specifically, the traveler said softly. Ningchen was silent. He didn't deny it, nor did he admit it. Seeing this, the traveler didn't ask anymore. In the primal demon realm, the human race was a taboo. Very few people dared to admit their identity as a human, even if they were close friends. We can't waste time here. If Big Brother isn't willing, then I'll go find them for revenge myself. At this moment, the young man among the 5 grabbed a bow and arrow, turned around, and rushed toward the only road outside the village. Stop him! The middle-aged man's expression changed and he quickly shouted. The woman beside him wanted to stop him, but she was pushed away by the man. It was too late for her to stop him. The young man's figure flashed out and rushed forward at high speed. Don't let him die in vain. Come with me to stop him. The middle-aged man got up and immediately chased after him. When the other 3 heard this, they all got up and hurriedly followed him. Benefactor, I'll bid you farewell. See you again. The traveler bowed and didn't delay any longer. He left with his sword on his back. Ningchen returned the greeting. After everyone had left, he glanced at the little girl's corpse in the rain and sighed softly. He reached out his hand and dug out a 4-foot-long grave in the muddy ground. He picked up the little girl and placed her inside. She suffered a lot when she was alive, so he hoped she could be buried in peace after death. After doing this, Ningchen turned around and looked in the direction the 5 people had left. He stepped forward and walked forward. Between the village and Sunrise City, a group of more than 10 people rode quickly. They rushed toward Sunrise City under the cover of the night. In Sunrise City, a pair of cold eyes looked ahead, waiting for the news of the completion of the mission. In the western courtyard of the monarch city, a handsome young man sat in the courtyard. On the stone table in front of him was a simple and elegant sword in its scabbard. The sword chi was restrained and there was no sharpness to it. In the courtyard, a few pretty maids were kicking embroidered balls back and forth. There was sweat on their fair foreheads. After playing for a long time, they were tired. Young master, come and play with us. A beautiful maid ran forward, panting. She pulled the young man's arm and shook it. Sister May, please spare me. I can't play with this. The young man smiled and said, You guys play. I'll just watch. Chapter 986. Sunrise City was a majestic and huge city. It was guarded by kings and had existed since ancient times. No one dared to invade it. Under the night sky, a group of more than 10 men galloped toward Sunrise City under the cover of the night. The rumbling sound was deafening. Swift like the wind, slow like the forest, aggressive like fire, and immovable like a mountain. Sunrise City's royal cavalry was famous. Anyone who heard of them would be terrified. For thousands of years, Sunrise City's royal cavalry rarely left the city. However, once they set out, they would leave nothing behind. The night was cold and silent. The cavalry galloped, stirring up dust for miles. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the night. Behind them, 5 figures galloped past. Their faces were full of anger and hatred. They rushed out of the dust and chased after the Sunrise City's royal cavalry like crazy. Suddenly, the leader of the royal cavalry, a man in heavy armor and black armor, raised his hand and ordered them to stop. The 12 royal cavalry followed the order. They all reined in their horses and stopped. The leader of the royal cavalry looked back and saw the 5 figures approaching from behind. Murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Kill. Without hesitation, the leader of the royal cavalry ordered. Behind them, the 12 royal cavalry went back the way they came and rushed toward the 5 people. The scimitar was unsheathed. Under the moonlight, the 12 royal cavalry met the 5 people in the dust. The scimitar slashed across their throats. In an instant, the wind blew and blood splattered. The 3 people were killed by the scimitar before they could fight back. They were buried forever. The middle-aged man's eyes were about to pop out. He shot out an arrow to avenge them. However, the heavy armor of Sunrise City's royal cavalry was difficult to damage. The arrow flew over and shook violently. In the sparks, the arrow was deflected. It could not hurt the royal cavalry at all. The scimitar slashed again. Blood splattered. The cold light of the scimitar slashed across their throats. In the blink of an eye, 4 of the 5 people were decapitated. The last young man looked at the shocking scene. His body froze. The anger in his eyes gradually turned into fear. He wanted to escape, but his legs were not listening to him. The leader of the royal cavalry rode on his horse and went forward with the scimitar in his hand. The scimitar slashed down to eliminate the source of trouble. Right at this moment, a sword light tore through the sky from afar, and it blocked the curved blade with a clang. The 12 royal cavalrymen of Rising Sun froze at the same time and looked in the direction where the sword light came from. Under the night sky, they saw a traveler in dark red swordsman robe walking over. His calm face showed that he couldn't bear it. In the blink of an eye, he had entered the battle. Benefactors, life is precious. I hope that you can be magnanimous. The pilgrim looked at the leader of the royal cavalry and said, Sorrow Walker. Seeing the person's attire, the man at the head of the king's cavalry was stunned. Why would this person appear here? Since when did the human tribe dare to meddle in the affairs of the 100 tribes? Saras, you have no right to meddle in the affairs of the Rising Sun Imperial City. One of the 12 Rising Sun Imperial cavalrymen said coldly. The heavens are virtuous. Sunrise Royal City should not be so cruel. Saras sighed softly. Fear flashed in the eyes of the leader of the riders. This person's strength was far above theirs. This was going to be troublesome. The situation changed. The man no longer hesitated. A jade scroll appeared in his hand, and he crushed it immediately. At this moment, in the Rising Sun Imperial City, where there was no night in the extreme daylight world, a majestic voice sounded and spread to the west courtyard. The royal cavalryman's mission is blocked. Go and help them. In the west courtyard, a young man who was watching a few maidservants playing with embroidered balls heard the voice transmission from the royal palace. He looked helpless. His father really couldn't let him rest for a while. Big sisters, please play by yourselves. I'm going out to do something. Yu Yao stood up and said with a smile. He turned around and took the ancient sword on the stone table, and walked out of the west courtyard. 300 miles away from the Rising Sun Imperial City, the Rising Sun Imperial cavalrymen and Saras confronted each other. Their curved blades were glaring. The mission of the Rising Sun Imperial City could not be stopped. In the distance, Su Yi's figure appeared. He stopped 10 miles away and did not move forward. His calm and indifferent eyes did not change in the slightest because of the slaughter in front of him. In this strange land he was just a passerby. He did not care about the grudges between the different races, nor did he want to care. Outside the royal city, Saras and the royal cavalrymen did not retreat. As they were in a stalemate, a young figure walked out from the direction of the royal city. The ancient sword in his hand had a restrained sword aura. After a few breaths, the young figure walked out of the battle. His speed was so fast that it was shocking. Young lord, seeing the person who came, the 13 royal cavalrymen of Sunrise bowed and greeted him respectfully. Go back and report. Leave this to me. Yu Yao said plainly. Yes. The 13 royal cavalrymen accepted the order respectfully. They reined in their horses and rushed back to the royal city. After the royal cavalrymen left, there were only 3 people left in the battle. Saras looked at the young lord of Sunrise Royal City and waved his hand to send the young man behind him out. Father's order is to eliminate the root of the problem. You can't protect him. Yu Yao said calmly. They are just ordinary citizens. Why is Sunrise Royal City not willing to give them a way out? Saras said with a solemn expression. I don't know the exact reason. If you want to know, you can go to Sunrise City. However, I have to complete the mission given to me by my father. Yu Yao reached out to hold the ancient sword. The moment the ancient sword was unsheathed, the clouds above the 9 heavens surged like waves, shaking the heavens and the earth. Chess Cloud Divine Sword, the peerless divine weapon of Sunrise Royal City, appeared again today. The ancient sword covered the moon and was dazzling. Seeing this, Saras' expression turned serious. He waved his hand and a sword appeared. Saras was unsheathed. The red Buddhist sword's brilliance rose. The 2 swords were dazzling as they faced each other from afar. Rumor has it that Saras' sword had once drawn the blood of a mortal realm practitioner. Today, I will experience it for myself. With a light shout, Yu Yao moved. In an instant, Chess Cloud moved the heavens. The 2 swords instantly clashed. The supreme martial energy collided. The divine sword's brilliance pierced through the clouds. The 2 astonishing divine weapons clashed for the first time. The rumbling shook the world. Although the 2 who were infinitely close to the mortal realm had not officially entered it, with the support of the divine sword, their combat power was no longer inferior to ordinary 4th-level practitioners. The 2 strong forces clashed. In the void, a vision appeared. Amidst the rays of light, the sun rose from the east, and the Saras flowers bloomed. The collision of the 2 great laws shook the sky and the sea, shaking the entire wasteland. As the laws clashed and the Saras flowers bloomed in the sky, a solemn figure appeared. It was a Vajra with angry eyes. With the Buddhist sword in its hand, it slashed at the divine sun in front of it. Seeing this, Yu Yao activated his royal bloodline. In an instant, a 3-legged golden crow appeared in the rising sun. It screeched towards the sky and turned into a stream of fire that crashed into the Vajra figure. With a loud bang, the golden crow and the Vajra collided. An earth-shattering vibration sounded. The wasteland instantly collapsed and collapsed. 300 miles away, Sunrise City's brilliance rose. The Great City Barrier Formation automatically activated and blocked the aftermath of the battle. In the immortal royal city, the brilliance became more and more dazzling. In the palace, a pair of majestic and cold eyes looked at the battle in the distance silently. After a long while, in the palace, a soft sound of surprise sounded. King Shiri's gaze shifted and looked at the plain-clothed figure 10 miles away from the battle. A strange look flashed across his face. Who was this person? He seemed to have never seen him before. In the wasteland, the battle became more and more intense. Sunrise's royal bloodline and human practitioners were fighting. Their techniques had been raised to the peak. The dazzling brilliance made people not dare to look directly at them. Suddenly, in Yu Yao's hand, Biyun's sword shone brightly. A vast power rose endlessly. The royal bloodline secret art appeared for the first time. 3 enlightened graces. Biyun waved. In an instant, the royal bloodline power in Yu Yao's body exploded. The unparalleled royal aura descended. The divine sword's power was instantly raised to the limit. The universe turned upside down, and the sun and moon sank. The practitioner blocked the attack with his sword. Blood splashed out, and he took a few steps back. Outside the battle, the sword energy swept past. The young man who was sent out of the battle earlier was instantly beheaded. His blood dyed the wasteland red. Saras looked back. Anger flashed across his eyes. He took a step forward, and the Buddhist sword slashed down. Endless holy light shone. Practitioner will meet again someday. His mission was completed. Yu Yao lost interest in continuing the battle. He slashed with his divine sword, and streaks of sword energy broke through the air. While blocking the holy light, he retreated from the battle. After Sunrise's royal bloodline left, Saras clenched his fists tightly. His anger could not be concealed. In the distance, Ningchen quietly watched this great battle. A moment later, he walked forward. In the wasteland, the figures that passed by each other did not communicate at all. Saras looked at the plain-clothed young man who was walking away. He opened his mouth, but in the end he did not say anything. After walking 100 steps, Ningchen stopped. With an indifferent expression, he said, "Great Master, this is the world of the 100 races. The human race does not belong here." After saying that, Ningchen did not say anything else, and continued to walk forward. After hearing the former's words, Saras was first startled. Then he fell silent. A hint of confusion flashed across his eyes. The plain-clothed figure slowly walked in the wasteland. Alone, he had put down the heavy burden on his shoulders. Now, as a spectator, he quietly watched everything that was happening around him. He did not interfere, nor did he say anything. When the sun rose from the east, a plain-clothed figure walked in front of the royal city. The moment the city gates opened, he walked into the city. The enormous royal city had been immortal for tens of thousands of years. Until now, it had been countless years. The Sunrise's royal family was famous among the 100 races. Thousands of years ago, there was even an emperor in charge, and he was extremely powerful. However, following the fall of the emperor of the Sunrise clan, the glory of the Sunrise clan became a thing of the past. Although they were still powerful, they could no longer be compared to the royal families of the 100 races. The royal city, the eternal polar day world. The divine sun shone high up in the sky. In the royal city, there was an endless stream of people coming and going. It was extremely lively. Ningchen walked among the pedestrians. Looking at the different races that passed by him, he gradually did not find it strange. The tall beastman was more than 10 meters tall. His fangs were ferocious, causing people to shudder. The exquisite leopard girl had a beautiful face, and her figure was abnormally hot. She wore revealing clothes, causing passers-by to look at her, but no one dared to step forward. The old eagle woman had sharp claws on her hands that were covered in black poison. The passers-by avoided her one after another, afraid that they would hurt the innocent. There were all kinds of races that he had never seen in the past. Now they were all reflected in his eyes. Ningchen looked at the men and women of various races that passed by him. His calm face revealed a hint of a smile. So, there was a world like this outside of this world. A frog in a well who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Today he had seen it for himself. Sunrise Palace, Imperial Palace. Ness Yao returned. On the throne in the palace, an illusory figure appeared. Looking at the son of the first wife who was walking over, he calmly said, "Investigate a person." Chapter 987. In front of the throne in King Sunrise's palace, an illusory figure stood in the light. His aura was so powerful that no one dared to look directly at him. Below, Yu Yao entered the palace with a sword in his hand. He looked at the illusory figure in the palace and said calmly, "Father." "Well done." In front of the throne, King Sunrise praised and continued, "Investigate one more person and report back as soon as possible." "Who?" Hearing this, Yu Yao asked with a strange expression. King Sunrise waved his hand. In the palace, the laws evolved, and a plain-clothed figure appeared. His face and aura were reflected in heaven and earth. Yu Yao looked at the illusory figure in front of him, and a strange expression flashed in his eyes. It's him? When he fought with Saros, this person was watching the battle from afar. So he was not unfamiliar with this person's face. "Father, why are you interested in this person? Is there anything different about him?" Yu Yao was puzzled and asked. In front of the throne in the light, King Sunrise nodded slightly and replied, "I suspect that this person is a human." "Oh." Yu Yao was surprised and said, "A human? Father, do you have any evidence? It has been a long time since a human appeared in Sunrise City." "It's just a suspicion now. Humans are different from other races. Although their lifespan and talent are not as good as ours, their cultivation speed far surpasses that of any other race. The young man just now is not inferior to you. Looking at his age, he should be less than 100 years old. In 100 years, he can peek into the immortal realm. This cultivation is really extraordinary," King Sunrise said seriously. 100 years. Yu Yao narrowed his eyes. After thinking for a moment, he accepted the order and said, "I understand. I will investigate this matter and report it to Father as soon as possible." "Okay, you can leave first." King Sunrise nodded and said calmly, "I'll take my leave." Yu Yao cupped his fists and bowed. Then he turned and walked out of the palace. Yu Yao left the palace. In front of the throne the light dissipated, and King Sunrise's figure faded and disappeared. In the western courtyard of the palace, Yu Yao walked over. When the four maids saw him, they were delighted. They immediately stepped forward and bowed. "Young master." "Sisters, please wait a moment. I still have something to do," Ness Yao said with a smile, before walking towards the stone room not far away. The four maids looked at each other, unable to conceal the curiosity in their eyes. What was the young master trying to do? Forbidden grounds of the western courtyard. Gigantic stone rooms stood tall and upright. Ness Yao looked at the 7 stone rooms in front of him. After pondering for a moment, he walked towards the final room. After training for so long, it was time for her to make a move. The stone door opened, and a decadent aura filled the air. What entered his eyes was a room that looked like a palace. It was luxurious, and it was brightly lit. Within the palace, an enchanting and beautiful figure was half lying on the ground. Her delicate body that was like a water snake was covered by a strand of light muslin, and most of her white skin was exposed. She was extremely charming, and it caused others to be unable to move their gazes away. "Hongjin, it's your turn." Ness Yao looked at the lamia in front of him and said. On the red carpet, the woman raised her head and looked at the man in front of her. A smile appeared on her beautiful and seductive face as she said softly, "Sir, don't forget your promise." Ness Yao nodded, and calmly said, "As long as you complete your mission, this young master will return your freedom." Hongjin lightly smiled. She stood up from the ground, and gently said, "What mission?" "Investigate a person's identity." Ness Yao's expression turned serious, and said, "Sunrise Royal City." On the streets, people came and went. Ningchen walked among them, quietly observing the people around him. Without a doubt, Even the commoners of the 100 races possessed combat strength that humans could never hope to match. Although they were not ranked, their innate talents and strength were enough to match up against the human race's post-liminary experts. Bang! Suddenly, a violent tremor sounded from afar, followed by deafening cheers. Even though they were extremely far away, they could still be heard clearly. The faces of the people on the streets did not change much, as though they were already used to such situations. Ning Chen's gaze shifted, and looked towards the direction where the tremor came from. After pondering for a moment, he walked towards it. The arena, a gigantic ring-shaped building, was bustling with noise. Tens of thousands of spectators were seated on high seats, and in the middle, on a platform made of strange black stones, a tall and sturdy figure was roaring towards the sky. His body, which was more than 30 meters tall, was shining with a strong bronze color, causing people to not dare to approach him. In front of the giant, a black-clothed man stood quietly. His body was surrounded by energy, and facing the giant, his face did not show the slightest hint of fear. At the entrance of the arena, Ning Chen stopped his footsteps. Looking at the rules posted not far away, he paid the spirit stones, and then walked in. At the highest point of the arena, at the position furthest away from the arena, Ning Chen stood there. His gaze was focused on the battle below, quietly watching. He did not have much understanding of the 100 races' battle methods. If he were to encounter an opponent in the future, it would be hard to avoid trouble. This arena, to him, was not a bad place. Below, on the arena, the black-clothed man's figure moved, dodging wave after wave of attacks from the giant. He looked to be in a sorry state, but in reality, he was very relaxed, and did not show the slightest hint of panic. After attacking for a long time, he was unable to harm the former in the slightest. The giant once again roared towards the sky. Light rose from his body, and his iron fist smashed through the air, smashing down. Beastmen, after all, are beastmen. You have strength, but you don't know how to use it. The black-clothed man sneered coldly. His figure flashed, dodging the giant's fist. Then he took a step forward, stepping on the giant's arm, and leaped up. Close at hand, black energy gathered, and the black-clothed man punched down, landing between the giant's eyes. With a loud bang, the punch, infused with genuine qi, landed between the giant's eyebrows. The giant's face was filled with pain. He took a few steps back and fell to the ground. The black-clothed man landed on the giant's body. His body was filled with black energy, forcefully suppressing the giant. Victory and defeat were clear. The surrounding high platforms were silent at first, but soon burst into cheers, shouting and celebrating for the winner. At the highest point, Ning Chen looked down and squinted his eyes. The difference in strength was too great, so it was difficult to see through the opponent's strength. However, the giant just now was not weaker than a human-inborn expert. Without any cultivation, the giant had such strength just by relying on his physical strength. The fighting strength of the giant race was indeed shocking. He just did not know if the giant race also had cultivators. This Black Moon has won 33 battles in a row. It's time for him to lose. Below in the cheers, a beautiful woman was sitting in the audience. She looked down and said coldly. Beside her, a middle-aged man looked serious and said, "This person's strength is shocking and unfathomable. Every time we arrange a stronger opponent, he can face it calmly. Now, unless White Demon fights, no one can say that they can defeat him." White Demon. Hearing this, the woman's eyes flashed and she said, "White Demon's whereabouts are uncertain. He can't be of any use now. Find someone else." The middle-aged man thought for a moment and nodded. "I'll arrange it as soon as possible." On the arena, after the battle between Black Moon and the giant ended, there were several more battles. The races were all different, and their strength was uneven. The scene was very lively, and the audience was very excited. At the highest point, Ning Chen watched every battle quietly. He had to quickly familiarize himself with the fighting style of each race. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. This was an eternal truth, and it was the same at all times. Hours passed. In the rising sun Imperial City, where there was never night, the people were already used to such a life. In the arena, batches of spectators walked in and out. However, the spectator stands were still filled with cheers. It was very lively. On the highest point of the audience, a silhouette in plain clothes stood quietly. He was inconspicuous, and he stood there for a few days without leaving. Manager. On the 7th day, in an exquisite room below the arena, a middle-aged man walked in quickly and said, "White Demon is back." Oh. In the room, the woman put down the wine in her hand and said with a strange expression, "So soon? Arrange for his battle with Black Moon immediately." Yes. The middle-aged man bowed respectfully and left. On the arena, a white-haired figure walked out. He held an iron sword, and his murderous aura made people shudder. White Demon. On the audience stand, when the audience saw the newcomer, they were first shocked, and then they shouted crazily, "White Demon! White Demon!" The crazed audience stood up and shouted. Their faces were filled with fanaticism and worship, as if they had seen a god. The scene was shocking. At the highest point of the audience stand, Ningchen squinted his eyes. This person's aura seemed familiar. "Young master, are you alone?" At this moment, a soft and gentle voice came from the side. It made people's bones go soft, and it was hard for them to control themselves. It was a woman in a red dress. Her face was extremely beautiful, and her figure was exquisite. Her white skin was faintly visible, and she was seductive but not vulgar. Ningchen turned around and saw the woman walking over. A strange look flashed in his eyes. Did he attract the attention of others so quickly? "Miss, what's the matter?" Ningchen looked at the woman in front of him and asked calmly. Hongjin smiled and said, "I don't know much about martial arts. The next battle seems to be an important one. Young master, can you explain it to me?" Ningchen had heard it before. He looked at the woman in front of him and said with a smile, "Judging from your clothes, you shouldn't be an ordinary person. This joke isn't funny at all." Hongjin laughed lightly, and the seductive look on her face disappeared. "Young master, you have good eyes. I'm Hongjin, may I know your name?" "Ningchen. So it's young master Ning." Hongjin smiled and said, "It's nice to meet you. Young master, you seem to have been standing here for a long time. Do you like to come to this place?" "It's my first time here." Ningchen replied honestly. Hearing this, Hongjin's eyes flashed and said, "Young master, you seem to be a martial artist as well. I wonder who do you think will win the next battle?" Ningchen looked at the two people standing opposite each other and said calmly, "These two are experts who have hidden their strength. Now it seems that Black Moon's cultivation is slightly stronger. However, the result of a battle has never been decided by the level of cultivation. Based on my intuition, I feel that White Devil has a higher chance of winning." Ningchen didn't say anything else. From just now, he had a feeling that this White Demon's aura was familiar. He had only been here for a short time, and he had only met a few people. Therefore, it wasn't hard to guess this person's identity. In addition, there was this woman of unknown origin beside him. The identity of the person who was truly scheming was obvious. Chapter 988. In the arena of Sunrise Royal City, Bai Mo and Heiyu were facing off against each other. The battle was about to begin, and the audience was in a frenzy. Empty-handed. Seeing that Heiyu was empty-handed, Bai Mo glanced at the iron sword in his hand and frowned. With a swing of his right hand, the iron sword flew out and stabbed into the stone wall. "You can use your sword." Heiyu looked at the legendary figure in the arena and said calmly, "I don't need to use my sword to deal with you," Bai Mo said indifferently. As soon as he said that, the atmosphere became tense. After a moment of stalemate, Heiyu moved first. A black aura rose from his body and he was unusually powerful. As Heiyu moved, Bai Mo moved as well. With a stomp of his foot, he dashed out so fast that the audience could only see an afterimage. White mist gathered on his fist, and he threw out a punch to meet Heiyu's attack. As the two experts clashed, a shockwave spread out. In the arena, runes rose and blocked the shockwave from the battle to prevent it from hurting the audience. In the intense battle, punches and kicks were exchanged. Every move was ruthless and every punch landed on flesh. Both of them were geniuses. Regardless of martial arts cultivation or battle experience, They were dragons and phoenixes among men. As soon as they clashed, the battle was so intense that it was too much for the audience to take in. After 10 moves, there was no clear winner. Heiyu's lips flashed coldly. He took a step forward and a black divine moon covered the entire arena. In an instant, the heavens and earth shook and the battle changed. In the divine moon realm, Heiyu's speed increased rapidly. As he moved, his aura was as heavy as a mountain, completely suppressing by Mo. At the highest point of the arena, Ningchen watched the battle quietly. His eyes were focused and he remembered every move clearly in his heart. He did not miss anything. At the side, Hongjin's beautiful eyes looked at the young man beside her from time to time. She did not care about the battle below. The mission this time was not simple. No wonder the young master came to her directly. From the moment they met, the young man's gaze did not change because of her appearance. She knew her charm and her mission. Taking down this man was the only way for her to regain her freedom. Men were lustful by nature, no matter if they were a gentleman or a villain. The only difference was the bottom line. Therefore, she did not believe that this man was not tempted at all. Thinking of this, Hongjin leaned her body slightly and leaned closer to the young man beside her. She exhaled and said, "Young Master Ning, do you still think that White Demon can win?" Ningchen looked at the battle below, and a smile appeared on his face as he said, "I believe in my instincts. Miss, battles of this level are rare. Why don't you try to observe the battle attentively?" As his words fell, several people in the stands in front of the two turned their heads and looked at the plain-clothed young man behind them, as if they were looking at a monster. It was rare to see someone so unromantic. There was a beauty by his side, but he didn't care about anything. He just watched the two men fight wholeheartedly. They already didn't know what to say. Hongjin was also startled when she heard the words of the man beside her. A moment later, she regained her senses and smiled sweetly. She did not say anything to disturb him, and quietly accompanied him to watch the battle. Below, in the arena, White Demon was completely suppressed by the black divine moon. Danger surrounded him as he fought back. With a bang, a heavy punch landed on White Demon's body. His figure flew back 100 feet and landed at the edge of the arena, barely managing to stabilize himself. In the stands, the spectators cried out in alarm. They nervously watched the battle below without blinking. Admit defeat, or die. Black Moon looked at the white-clothed figure in front of him, and said in a low voice. White Demon looked up and a golden light flashed in his eyes. He exerted force with his feet, and with a bang, the remaining force was removed. The array around him violently shook, and talismans were destroyed one after another. It gradually reached its limit. Black Moon sensed this and his expression suddenly changed. Without any explanation, he quickly retreated. Showing off in front of an expert. White Demon raised his hand and a golden divine sun soared into the sky, swallowing Black Moon. In an instant, White Demon's figure flashed by at a shocking speed. Before he could regain his senses, White Demon's fist turned into a palm. With a bang, his palm landed on Black Moon's chest. The heavy palm landed on Black Moon's body and blood splashed out. He was sent flying and crashed into the black stone wall outside the arena. His clothes were torn apart, and he was in a miserable state. It was an unbelievable reversal. With just one move, the battle was over. In front of an absolute difference in strength, all battle tactics were useless. At the top of the arena, Ningchen quietly watched the battle below. A strange light flashed in his eyes. Now he was even more certain of White Demon's identity. White Demon actually won. Young Master Ning is indeed powerful. Hongjin said with a soft smile. Ningchen smiled. Suddenly, his expression turned serious as he looked at the arena below. On the arena, White Demon looked up and a provocative light flashed in his eyes. He said indifferently, "You've been watching for so long. Come down and fight." The casual voice was so clear that it spread throughout the entire martial arts arena. Everyone was stunned as they followed White Demon's gaze. At the top of the arena, a white-clothed figure stood quietly. His white hair fluttered in the wind. Although his face was young, there was an indescribable sense of age, as if he had experienced countless hardships. Below the arena, A beautiful woman who was calmly watching the battle frowned slightly. She put down the wine cup in her hand and said, "Go and see what happened." "Yes." The middle-aged man bowed respectfully and retreated. Not long after, the middle-aged man returned and said with a serious expression, "Manager, White Demon is provoking someone. The target is very unfamiliar and doesn't seem to be a regular of our arena." "Strange." The beautiful woman stood up and walked towards the arena. She knew White Demon's character. Every time he came, he would immediately leave after accepting a few challenges. He never spoke much and did not care about anything. Today was a little strange. The arena was unusually quiet. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the arena, waiting for the result. Under everyone's gaze, a smile gradually appeared on Ning Chen's face. He nodded and said, "Okay." As soon as he finished speaking, he lightly tapped his foot, and the white-clothed figure flew down from the sky. His movement technique was graceful, like a fairy. Above, Hongjin looked at the former's back and her eyes were full of splendor. She also wanted to see what the young man who would decide her future was capable of. In the arena, seeing that the white-clothed young man had accepted the challenge, everyone cheered loudly and encouraged him. Immediately investigate this person's identity. Below the arena, the beautiful woman looked at the white-clothed figure on the arena and said seriously, "Yes." The middle-aged man accepted the order and quickly left. "Please." On the arena, Ning Chen raised his hand and calmly said to the white-clothed man opposite him, "I won't say nonsense like I'll let you have one sword." Then White Demon clenched his right hand, and the sword on the stone wall in the distance trembled and turned into a streak of light that flew over. White Demon grasped the sword and his aura instantly changed. His sharp sword intent soared into the sky and shook the entire arena. "Sir, where is your weapon? Take it out." White Demon looked at the person in front of him and said seriously, "Sorry, I can't use it for now." Ning Chen revealed an apologetic expression. His true chi rose and snow fell from the sky. An abnormally powerful energy constantly shook the arena, shocking everyone. Peak of the third realm. Below the arena, the beautiful woman's expression changed slightly when she felt the former's pressure. An expert close to the red dust realm. This young man actually had such a powerful cultivation. The promise of 10 years could not be violated. Facing White Demon, who was hiding his identity, Ning Chen did not suppress his cultivation. Since the young master of the royal city had already sent people to investigate him, then hiding his cultivation would show that he had ulterior motives. Besides, it would be interesting if he could force the young master of the royal city to reveal his identity. After a moment of confrontation, the two figures moved at the same time. Knowing each other's abilities, both of them attacked with earth-shattering power. The nine heavens star-picking hand appeared again. Starlight shone brightly and collided with the royal city's sword. After 10 moves, both of them were shocked. White Demon took in Yuan and raised his true chi by 30%. A golden divine sun rose into the sky and devoured the world. The royal city's secret technique appeared again. Although White Demon deliberately hid his aura, it still attracted many suspicious gazes. The art of the rising sun, heavenly sun, could only be used by the royal family's direct descendants and a few trusted aides. This was a well-known fact. Now that the royal family's secret technique appeared in White Demon's hands, if he did not steal it, then this person must be related to the rising sun royal family. Under the divine sun realm, White Demon's speed and strength increased by several times. His every move was shocking. It was the first time that Ning Chen faced a foreign race expert of the same level, so he did not dare to be careless. He took in Yuan and Qi and moved his body. He used the Qilin's secret technique to the limit to meet the royal city's secret technique. Star plucking and heavenly sun were martial arts that were diametrically opposed. As they clashed, the Dharma idol sank and the world shook. On the arena, all the arrays were activated and countless runes rose. However, facing the impact of the battle between two experts close to the red dust realm, dozens of arrays began to collapse, unable to withstand the power of the two. In the stands, tens of thousands of spectators saw this and immediately panicked. Below the arena, the beautiful woman who was in charge of the arena changed her expression slightly. She did not dare to delay any longer and said in a deep voice, Attack! As soon as she said this, 4 black-robed old men appeared in the arena. They activated their half-step red dust realm cultivation and worked together to protect the array, blocking the aftermath of the battle between the two. The 4 experts of the arena took action. In the stands, the panicked spectators gradually calmed down. They looked at the battle below with excitement and a trace of fear. Burning sun. Star-plucking divine sun. Ningchen shouted and his figure flew out. It was difficult to distinguish between the real and the fake. White Demon focused and gathered the power of the divine sun on his iron sword. The golden brilliance was dazzling. The sword slashed down and broke the afterimages. However, a white-robed figure appeared behind him out of thin air and slammed down with a heavy palm. With a rumble, the air billowed. In the aftermath of the shock, White Demon blocked the burning sun palm with his iron sword and was in danger. At the same time, in King Shiri's palace, rays of light gathered and the majestic king appeared. He looked at the arena in the distance and raised his hand to the sky. The next moment, the shocking palm power passed through layers of space and appeared in the sky above the arena. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, it fell from the sky. In the arena, Ningchen felt it and looked at the sky with a solemn expression. The 5 scrolls were opened. The life scroll was the origin, and the heaven, earth, nothingness, and spirit scrolls were combined. He activated the star-plucking technique and broke through the sky. Chapter 989. In Sunrise Royal City, the king made his move. The power of his palm pierced through the air, and the forceful power passed through the space restriction and reached the arena in the distance. The shocking palm with unparalleled power drew a dazzling blood mark in the sky. Everyone's shocked gaze swept towards the arena. In the arena, a terrifying pressure descended. In the stands, all the spectators were shocked, and their faces were filled with fear. In the arena below, wind and snow rolled. In the huge whirlpool, 5 scrolls were opened. The life scroll was the foundation, and the godless heaven and earth scroll activated the power of picking stars. The palm broke through the air and met the king's attack. In the sky, picking stars shook the rising sun. In the shocking collision, the wind and clouds changed color. Endless aftershocks roared and surged, spreading thousands of miles away. In the royal city, the people were shocked. They immediately prostrated on the ground and trembled. Below the arena, in the arena, the white-clothed figure's legs sank 3 inches into the ground, but she forcefully received the king's attack. Her peerless ability was shocking. After the attack, the wind and clouds in the sky gradually dispersed. The king's power did not descend again, and everyone secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Ningchen looked at the sky, suppressing the surging blood in his body. A hint of seriousness flashed across his eyes. The king's power was indeed abnormally terrifying. He already had to deal with the attack from such a distance. If King Sunrise came personally, it would be really troublesome. In the arena, White Demon waved his hand and kept his sword. He looked at the young man in front of him, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. Hongjin Yu Yao, the distinguished guest of the royal city, do not neglect him. At this moment, in the sky above the arena, King Sunrise's voice sounded calmly. Yes. At the highest point of the arena, Hongjin bowed respectfully and replied. In the arena, White Demon also bowed and received the king's order. In the next moment, golden light rose around White Demon's body. The disguise disappeared, and an extraordinarily handsome young man with the becloud in his hand entered everyone's eyes. Young Lord Yu Yao. In the arena, tens of thousands of spectators were shocked when they saw this. A moment later, they regained their senses and immediately stood up to bow. The young lord of Sunrise Royal City came personally. In the arena, everyone knelt down and did not dare to cross him. On the opposite side, Ningchen looked at the person in front of him and narrowed his eyes. Gradually, a smile appeared on his face as he said, I didn't think that the young master would take the initiative to reveal his identity. Your distinguished self-strength is extraordinary, and this young patriarch does not have the confidence to continue hiding my identity. Counting the previous time, this should be the second time we meet. Nice to meet you. Ness Yao looked at the former and said with a smile, "Young master is too polite." Ning Chun returned the greeting and said with a light smile, "The lady above must be one of young master's people. This gift is too valuable. Young master should take it back." "So you've already seen through it, sir." A strange glint flashed past Ness Yao's eyes. This person's eyesight was truly astonishing, and he was a difficult opponent to deal with. Following this, he had to carefully deal with him. Thinking up to this point, Yu Yao looked towards the highest point of the arena. With a gentle smile on his face, he said, "Hong Jin was indeed a member of King Shiri's manor in the past. However, she is now a free person, so this young lord can no longer interfere with her choice." When Ning Chun heard this, his eyes narrowed. He would be a fool if he believed this. At the highest point of the arena, Hong Jin took a step forward. Her red dress fluttered as she descended from the sky. She looked like a fairy who had descended from the heavens. Her beauty was enchanting. Young master Ning." Hong Jin stepped forward and bowed towards the two of them. Ning Chun chuckled. Looking at the lady in front of him, he said, "Miss, you're free now. This is what your young master said in front of this one, so I believe it still counts." When Hong Jin heard this, her expression shook. A moment later, she calmed herself down and bowed. She softly said, "Thank you, young master. Thank you, young master Ning." Yu Yao looked at the person in front of him, and a ray of light flashed past his eyes. This Mr. Ning was really good at scheming. This time, even if Hong Jin couldn't complete her mission, he couldn't restrict her freedom anymore. "This isn't the place to talk. I believe this must be the first time Brother Ning has come to Sunrise Royal City. Why don't I be the host and find a place to have a drink?" Ness Yao glanced at the quiet martial arena and said. Ning Chun pondered for a moment, nodded lightly and said, "Then I'll have to trouble young master." Under the gazes of the crowd, the two of them walked out of the arena. Behind them, Hong Jin followed quietly. After the three of them left, the tens of thousands of spectators in the arena finally regained their senses. They looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with shock. Intoxicated fragrance in the largest brothel in the royal city. Yu Yao brought the two of them over. In front of the inn, a strange look flashed past Hong Jin's face. She didn't expect that the young master would bring her and young master Ning to a place like this. Ning Chun looked forward and revealed a playful smile. The choice of this Shiri royal city's young master was rather unique. The three of them entered intoxicated fragrance inn. Immediately, several scantily clad beautiful ladies came forward to welcome them. When they saw Hong Jin behind the two of them, their expressions were instantly stunned. Bringing a lady to a brothel, this was the first time they had encountered something like this. "Young Master Yao, so it's you. It's truly been a long time." Just as the women were in a daze, a slightly older but still charming middle-aged woman quickly stepped forward and said with a coquettish smile, I've been too busy recently, so I didn't have time to come. Today, this young master has brought an important guest. You must treat him well." Yu Yao laughed heartily. Of course. Young Master Yao's friend. How would we dare to slight him in the slightest?" The lady replied with a smile. Reaching out her hand, she waved towards the ladies at the side and said, "Treat young Master Yao and his friend well. You must definitely let the two young masters have fun." "Yes." The few beautiful ladies replied in unison. Immediately after, they swarmed forward, pulled the two of them over, and walked towards the table. At the table, the two of them were pressed onto chairs by the ladies. As they toasted, they thought of ways to get close to the two of them. Anyone could tell that the identities of these two people were not ordinary. They did not ask for much either. As long as they served them well, they were already very satisfied with being rewarded with a little more money. Being surrounded by a flock of orioles, being surrounded by a soft and fragrant jade, had always been something that men liked the most. However, the two of them present were not people who would be dazzled by beauties. Both of them had ulterior motives, and their bellies were filled with black water. With a gentle expression, Ning Chun received cup after cup of wine from the ladies beside him. His attitude was very different from his usual cold and indifferent attitude. At the side, Hong Jin was a little uncomfortable. No matter how open-minded she was as a woman, She would not be too used to such extravagant scenes in a brothel. Ningchen received a cup of wine and looked at Hong Jin, who was sitting on pins and needles but trying her best to remain calm. He smiled and said, "Miss Jean, is this your first time here?" Hong Jin was stunned for a moment. She nodded and answered softly, "Yes." "Ha!" Ningchen chuckled and said, "I've been here several times, so I'm not considered a stranger. Miss Jean, you can relax a little. The ladies here are not wild beasts. They're just a little more enthusiastic. They won't eat you up." "Young master, you're absolutely right. Between the two of them," a pretty but cheerful woman said with a smile. She poured a cup of wine and handed it to Hong Jin. She continued, "Sister, since you're here, have a cup of wine to warm yourself up. You'll be more relaxed when you rest later." Hong Jin calmed herself down, and a smile appeared on her beautiful face again. "Thank you." She received the cup of wine and downed it in a single gulp. Hong Jin's expression regained her composure, and her exceptionally beautiful face became even more charming. The few women at the side were all dazed for a moment. Ningchen smiled faintly. This Miss Hong Jin was trained to be a tool to carry out missions since she was born. Most likely, she had long forgotten what she was supposed to be like. If beauty lost its soul, it would indeed lose a lot of its luster. He was not an idiot, nor was he a eunuch. Naturally, he liked beautiful things as well. However, compared to the beauty and seductiveness that was artificially trained, he preferred the original purity of everything. He had done his best to help her fight for her freedom. He would not interfere with what would happen in the future. Just as the two of them were drinking, two women came down from upstairs. Their faces were charming, and what was even more stunning was that the two of them looked exactly the same. There was not the slightest difference between them. Dongyu Xiaji accompanied the two young masters well. The Hua Xian woman who came down together with the two of them spoke with a smile. "Yes." The two women named Dongyu and Xiaji nodded. They looked at each other, and then walked forward. Surrounded by soft jade and fragrant fragrance, Ningchen and Yu Yao raised their heads. When they saw the two women walking over, the smiles on their faces froze. Without any explanation, Ningchen raised his hand and pushed away the few women beside him. Flipping the tables and chairs, he threw them towards the two of them. Before everyone present could react to the sudden change, they were sent flying by a powerful force. The area within a radius of 10 meters instantly turned into an empty space. Dongyu and Xiaji shattered the wooden table with a wave of their hands. Their figures passed through, and their slender hands turned into sharp blades, striking towards the two of them. With the arrival of danger, Bian unsheathed his sword. With a shocking tremor, the divine weapon's edge blocked the slender hands. Yu Yao's eyes exploded with killing intent, and he coldly said, "Speak, who sent you here?" "After you die, the King of Hell will tell you," Dongyu coldly replied. Frost condensed on his hands, and the indestructible sharp claws shook off the former's sword with a loud clang. A shocking cultivation. At the same time Dongyu attacked, Xiaji's figure arrived in front of Ningchen as well. Her hands condensed into softness, and they locked onto the latter's throat. A strange battle tactic, and a shocking strength. Ningchen raised his palm to block the killing move. With a loud tremor, the force behind his palm was dispersed. Her slender hands wrapped around him, taking his life. Amen. Ningchen frowned. He released his scrolls, and the wind and snow surged, shaking off the former's attack. An assassination without any warning. Two women with shocking cultivations were fighting against two experts below the secular realm alone, and they were actually not at a disadvantage at all. Their strength was shocking. After exchanging 3 blows, the surrounding restaurants were constantly collapsing. Countless men and women revealed panicked expressions, and before they could even shout out, they were sent flying by the wind and snow. Inside the drunken fragrance inn, the wind and snow frantically swirled, turning into a barrier that enveloped the 4 of them. While blocking off the aftershocks, it also prevented the number of casualties from increasing. "Young Master Yu Yao, this time you'll owe me a favor." Ningchen once again pushed away the woman in front of him with a flip of his palm. His gaze swept towards the young master of Rising Sun Royal City, who was similarly in a tough battle, and he said, Aiding the tyrant, you deserve to die 10,000 times. On the other side, the killing intent on Xiaoji's face grew even denser. Her body poured down like a waterfall, splitting the universe apart. Chapter 990. In the drunken fragrance inn of the Sunrise Royal City, the wind and snow were raging. The only descendant of the royal bloodline of the Sunrise royal family was assassinated. The battle was white-hot, and the entire Wind Moon Inn was destroyed. Ning Chun and Yu Yao teamed up to fight the twins who were rare in the world. Both of them were half a step into the mortal realm, and their special martial arts made them fall into a bitter battle. Bi Yin was unsheathed, and his blade was threatening. However, Dong Yu's slender hands were as indestructible as divine weapons. She was not at a disadvantage when facing Bi Yun's divine sword with her flesh and blood. On the other side, Ning Chen also dared not to be careless when facing Xia Ji, one of the twin assassins. He had never seen such a strange martial art and combat method, so he had to be careful. The two top young experts under the mortal realm were in a dilemma at the same time. Facing the two twin assassins whose identities were unknown, it was difficult for them to gain the upper hand for a while. In the imperial palace of the Sunrise Royal Palace, thousands of rays of light gathered in the imperial palace. King Sunrise's figure appeared. He looked in the direction of the drunken fragrance inn in the distance, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. The king raised his hand, and a vast and powerful palm energy surged. At this moment, above the royal city, a giant hand fell from the sky and slapped at the imperial palace with a loud bang. The two equally matched forces collided in the sky. In the earth-shaking vibration, the two palm energies spread out, and the aftermath roared in all directions. In the imperial palace, King Sunrise looked at the sky with a solemn expression. A king had intervened. "Go and help the young master," King Sunrise said with a solemn expression. "Yes." Outside the imperial palace, the royal guards respectfully accepted the order. After a moment, they disappeared and hurried in the direction of the drunken fragrance inn. In the imperial palace, King Shiri looked up at the sky, and his vigorous vital essence was constantly activated. In the dazzling golden light, an abnormal phenomenon appeared in the sky above the palace. In the golden divine flame, a three-legged golden crow appeared, and the supreme divine flame soared into the sky. In the sky, dark clouds stirred and thunder roared. The king-level power fell from the sky again, and the wind and thunder blasted at the three-legged golden crow below. The two kings' power collided again, and the universe shook. In the royal city, strange light rose, and runes circled, blocking the spreading aftermath of the battle. As the kings fought, the world shook. Countless people in the Sunrise Royal City looked over in shock. In the drunken fragrance inn, the two kings, who were in a bitter battle, felt the terrifying vibration in the direction of the royal palace. Imperial Father. Ness Yao's heart sank slightly. There was actually a king-level expert who had made a move. It seemed like this assassination attempt had been planned for a very long time. "Brother Ning, be careful. We might really be in trouble." Thinking up to this point, Ness Yao swung his sword, swept his gaze across the battlefield not far away, and reminded. "Understood," Ning Chen replied. He dodged the slender hand that came at him like a venomous snake. His palm congealed wind and snow as he forcefully counterattacked. The hand of the star plucking opened and closed. The peerless foundation condensed the wind and clouds. The power of the star plucking was shockingly majestic, as it attacked the woman in front of him. As the killing move approached, Summer Solstice did not panic at all. A strange light rose from her delicate hands, and her whole body shone brilliantly as she faced the palm of picking stars. Extreme moves collided, and in an instant, heaven and earth were turned upside down. The aftershocks attacked their bodies, and both of them were forced back 10 steps at the same time before they stabilized themselves. With a flip of his palm, Ning Chen suppressed the surging energy in his body. He looked at the woman in front of him, and a strange look flashed past his eyes. This woman was not much weaker than the 4th-level expert he faced earlier. She had sent out 2 4th-level experts to assassinate the Sunrise Royal bloodline, and even had a king-level expert obstruct the Lord of Sunrise Royal City. If he had not appeared here by accident, Nesya would most likely have met with disaster this time. It seemed like the 100 clans were not as united as they seemed. Young Lord Nesya. Ning Chen's gaze swept across the battlefield not far away, and said, "How about we talk about something? Speak your mind." Nesya said seriously, "That Miss Jean you sent away, you just have to return her freedom. However, I want these two ladies in front of you," Ning Chen said calmly. Hearing this, Nesya's eyes flashed with brilliance. This Mr. Ning sure had a huge appetite. These two twins whose strength was comparable to the Red Dust realm. Their future potential was unimaginable. As long as such geniuses could be taken in for his own use, they would definitely be of great use in the future. Shameless bastard. After hearing this, winter rain and summer solstice's killing intent grew even stronger. As they attacked, thunder rumbled and waves surged. Nesya swung his sword and slashed apart a layer of cold rain. His gaze grew even more serious, and he replied, "Even if Brother Ning likes them, this young lord will not take what you like. These two ladies will be at Brother Ning's disposal." "Then thank you, young lord." After receiving his promise, Ning Chen responded. He opened his hands, and the energy of Yin and Yang soared into the sky. Mystic Art, Sun and Moon Ascension. The jet-black mystic art reappeared. In an instant, a black moon and a white sun rose into the sky at the same time. The chaotic energy constantly surged, and the yin and yang were stirred. The sky and earth changed color. It was a world-shocking move, and its pressure was strong. Winter rain and summer solstice's expressions turned serious at the same time. Their figures intertwined, and they combined their moves to block the sun and moon. With a loud rumble, the two extremes of yin and yang clashed against each other. The two women retreated a few steps, and a trace of blood flowed down from the corners of their mouths, dyeing it red for the first time. Not far away, Nesya's figure arrived. Looking at the two injured women in front of him, he said, "It seems like Brother Ning's attitude immediately changed after hearing that he could obtain these two beauties. Young lord, you're making fun of me. If I want to receive my reward, I have to put in some effort." Ning Chen waved his hand to disperse the dust in front of him, and replied. Nesya nodded, his expression did not relax. Looking forward, he continued. "Brother Ning, have you ever worked together with a swordsman before?" "Too many to count." Ning Chen replied honestly. "Then that's good. Brother Ning's foundation is extraordinary. Next, I'll have to trouble Brother Ning to hold back these two ladies," Nesya said solemnly. "Sure." Ning Chen did not decline and replied. After the division of labor was completed, the Beyond Cloud Divine Sword in Nesya's hand surged into the sky. A golden Divine Sun soared into the sky, and within the Divine Sun, a three-legged golden crow flapped its wings. Divine flame scattered down, filling the entire battlefield. Summer solstice, be careful. On the other side, winter rain reminded her with a solemn voice. Wind and frost condensed in her slender hands. An endless cold energy surged, blocking layer after layer of golden divine flames. Mystic art, waxing moons. The battle began once again, and the situation escalated to another level. Ning Chen raised both of his hands, and his mystic art shocked the world. In the entire battlefield, the power of laws crazily swirled, and a black moon materialized. From round to incomplete, it evolved into the true form of heaven and earth. No words could be spoken, and no words could be spoken. With the addition of the mystic art, the two ladies instantly felt an intense tearing sensation coming from their bodies. Without any warning, they were unable to avoid it. A pool of blood splashed out, dyeing their clothes red. Winter rain and summer solstice both vomited blood. Facing a martial art that they had never seen before, they were once again injured. In an instant, the three-legged golden crow flapped its wings from the golden divine sun and swept out at an extremely fast speed. Its speed was shocking. At the same time, Nesyao's figure moved as well, and his mystic art moved as well. He was so fast that no one could react in time. A sword pierced through her body, and fresh blood gushed out. As she was the one who was injured, Summer Solstice did not have the time to dodge. The tip of the sword entered her body, and blood sprinkled down like rain. Summer solstice. Winter Rain's expression shook, and she said, "Don't be anxious. You two are people that Brother Ning wants to take down. This young lord will not be ungrateful and kill you." Xiao pulled out his sword, and his figure swept out. He swung his sword to shake off the blood on the sword, and said indifferently, "The situation of the battle tilted so quickly." Summer Solstice's figure retreated a few steps, holding her injured right chest. She coughed violently, and blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. She was heavily injured. Winter Rain rushed over to support the heavily injured Summer Solstice, and her face was filled with anxiety. "Winter Rain, leave quickly." Summer Solstice pushed the woman beside her away, and shouted while supporting her heavily injured body. Just as the situation of the battle changed, the battle between the two kings in King Sunrise's palace had reached a white-hot level. The rumbling shook, and the wind and clouds stirred. It was so terrifying that the common people trembled and could not get up. In front of the throne, King Sunrise sensed the changes in the battle situation in the distance. A cold smile appeared on his dignified face, and he said, "God bless Sunrise's royal bloodline. Your plan has failed." In the sky, in the stirred thunderclouds, an illusory figure stood, looking at the battle in the distance. A hint of gloominess flashed through his eyes. No matter how many plans there were, it was better to go up to the heavens. Who was that unfamiliar young expert? He had never seen him before. Retreat. With an order, tens of thousands of thunderbolts descended from the thunderclouds and blasted toward the battle in the distance. In King Sunrise's palace, King Sunrise sneered. He stepped out into the void, raised his palm, and blocked the thunderbolts from descending from the sky. "These two women are your apology to Sunrise City. I won't see you off." King Sunrise waved his hand to disperse the aftermath between heaven and earth, and said lightly. In the sky, in the thunderclouds, the illusory figure looked down and said in a deep voice, "King Sunrise, I will remember today's grievances. There will be plenty of time in the future. Next time you won't be so lucky." As soon as he finished speaking, the wind and clouds in the sky were turbulent. In the blink of an eye, the wind stopped and the clouds dispersed, and the figure of the king also disappeared. After the king left, in the battle in the distance, Summer Solstice showed a determined look. With a deep shout, her genuine vitality rushed to the sky, and her hair was broken. Her black hair danced wildly in the wind. "Winter Rain, let's go." With another angry shout, Summer Solstice raised the clouds in the sky with both hands, and a shocking power descended from the sky. Faintly, the natural moat in front of the mortal realm shook, and she had a glimpse of the legendary realm. With tears in her eyes, Winter Rain endured the pain in her heart, stepped out, and quickly withdrew from the battle. Seeing this, Ningchen raised his finger and pointed at the sky, trying to stop the former's footsteps. Heaven and earth changed. In the dazzling brilliance, an immortal rainbow pierced through heaven and earth and swept forward. At the moment of crisis, Summer Solstice's figure flashed and blocked in front of the immortal rainbow. Her heavenly waterfall rolled and blocked the rainbow. With a rumble, the immortal rainbow penetrated the woman's body. Blood splashed, and the heavenly waterfall was dyed red. However, its power did not diminish and fell from the sky. Reverse burning. As the heavenly waterfall fell, Xiao moved and slashed with her sword. Divine flames soared into the sky. Water and fire intertwined, and white mist appeared. In the distance, Winter Rain's figure had already disappeared. It was too late to chase after her. In the battle, Summer Solstice turned around and looked at Winter Rain, who was already far away. Her beautiful face revealed a gratified smile. Her heavily injured body could no longer hold on, and she powerlessly fell. In the white mist, a plain-clothed figure walked out. She reached out her hand to support the fallen Summer Solstice. The life scroll opened, and a dense life force poured into the latter's body, prolonging her life. At the side, Xiao walked over. Looking at the former, he revealed a regretful expression and said, "Unfortunately, one still escaped." "It's enough." Ningchen smiled and said, "Everything can't be perfect. Furthermore, with Summer Solstice here, that Lady Winter Rain will return." Chapter 991. Rising Sun Royal City. After a great battle, the entire intoxicated fragrance inn was destroyed, and the surrounding areas were plundered. The royal guards were quickly dispatched, and the royal city was under martial law, not allowing anyone to enter or leave. In a manor not far from Rising Sun Royal Palace, a medicinal fragrance assailed the nostrils. Silhouettes in plain clothes would occasionally pass by, preparing medicinal herbs for treatment. On the bed, a beautiful woman had her eyes tightly shut. Her face was pale, and she looked extremely weak. On the table beside the bed, a fire was dancing, and medicinal fragrance continuously spread out from the medicinal pot. Outside the room, Ningchen walked in. Glancing at the woman on the bed who still had not woken up, he opened the medicinal pot and placed the spiritual herbs he prepared one by one into the pot. Gradually within the room, an even thicker medicinal fragrance spread out, refreshing one's heart. An hour later, Ningchen picked up the medicinal pot from the fire and poured the brewed medicine into a bowl. Looking at the little divine medicine on his shoulder, he revealed a smile. "Little gourd, help me out. Just one drop." The little gourd reached out a white and tender finger and bargained. "All right." Ningchen chuckled and placed the bowl of medicine in front of the little boy. The little gourd closed its eyes and with a pained expression, bit its finger and squeezed out a drop of blood into the bowl. Immediately after, it retracted its finger and placed it into its mouth, afraid that even half a drop of blood would flow out. Ningchen smiled and patted the little boy's head and said, "Thank you. Immortal Elder, you promised to give me divine jades." The little gourd said with an aggrieved expression. I almost forgot." Ningchen flipped his hand, and a small divine jade appeared. Immediately after, he placed it in front of the little boy, and said with a light smile, "Eat it sparingly, this thing is expensive." The little gourd nodded vigorously, and reached out to receive the divine jade. Placing it into its mouth, it began to happily chew on it as though it was a snack. Ningchen carried the medicine to the bed, and sat down. He carefully helped the woman up, and then he used a spoon to slowly feed the medicine into the woman's mouth. "Brother Ning, is your little beauty still not awake?" At this moment, a familiar voice sounded from outside the room. Without waiting for the manor's owner to speak, Nesyao dressed in blue robes walked in. Holding an ancient sword, he looked extraordinarily handsome. Beside the bed, Ningchen turned around and looked at the young lord of the royal city who was walking over. He smiled and said, "Young lord, are you so free?" "Not really, but with such an important person like Brother Ning here, other things can be temporarily postponed." Nesyao stepped forward and said with a light smile, "Young lord thinks too highly of me." After feeding her the medicine, Ningchen stood up and placed the bowl on the table. He said, "You don't come here for no reason. Young master, you're not really here just to chat, are you?" Yu Yao lightly smiled and said, "Brother Ning is still so direct. Then this young patriarch shall not beat around the bush. My royal father wishes to meet you. When Brother Ning has the time, can you accompany me to meet my royal father, King Shuri?" Hearing this, a strange light flashed across Ningchen's eyes, and he said, "Young lord, you must be joking. King Shuri is very busy every day. How can he have time to see a commoner like me? Brother Ning is too modest." Yu Yao's expression became serious, and he said, "Brother Ning has done a great favor for my Shuri royal bloodline. My royal father wishes to meet you just to thank Brother Ning for your kindness back then. I hope Brother Ning will not refuse." Ningchen looked at the person in front of him. After a long while, he nodded lightly and said with a smile, "I will remember King Shuri's invitation. When Miss Xia Ji's injuries are better, I will accompany you to meet King Shuri." "That's great." Yu Yao nodded and looked at the unconscious woman on the bed and said, "How are her injuries?" "There are healing medicines in the palace. Why don't you bring Miss Xia Ji to the palace to recuperate?" "Young lord, I appreciate your kindness." Ningchen shook his head and said, "Miss Xia Ji's injuries are gradually stabilizing, so there's no need to trouble you. Furthermore, Miss Xia Ji still has quite a bit of hostility towards you, so it's not suitable to bring her to the palace." Yu Yao thought for a moment, and then nodded lightly and said, "Let's do as Brother Ning says." However, Brother Ning, you have to be careful too. This Miss Xiaji's strength is astonishing, so you have to be careful. Thank you for your reminder, young lord. I will be careful, Ning Chen lightly replied. Then I'm relieved. I still have matters to attend to in the palace, so it's not convenient for me to stay any longer. I shall take my leave first. Yu Yao cupped his fists and bid farewell. Have a safe journey, young lord, Ning Chen softly said. Yu Yao nodded, and without saying anything else, he turned and left. Ning Chen watched the former leave. After a long while, he turned to look at the woman on the bed and said, Miss Xiaji, there's no need to pretend. I know you're already awake. On the bed, Xiaji's body trembled. A moment later, she regained her calmness, opened her eyes, and looked at the plain-clothed young man beside her. With an ice-cold expression, she said, How did you know I'm already awake? Earlier, when Yu Yao was about to leave, you unconsciously released your killing intent. It seems like your hostility towards the young lord of Shiri Royal City is not small. Can you tell me why? Ning Chen walked forward and said with a smile. It's none of your business. Xiaji turned her head away, no longer looking at the former, and coldly said, Miss, you have a backbone. Ning Chen smiled and said, However, I'm the one who saved your life. Shouldn't you have some gratitude in your heart? When Xiaji heard this, she could not help but turn her head back. Her eyes were filled with hatred as she looked at the person in front of her, and said, If it wasn't for you, the young lord of Shiri City would have already died in our hands. Shiri Royal City has done many evil deeds, and you're helping the tyrant. You won't have a good ending. I'm not sure what kind of things Shiri Royal City has done that would incur the wrath of the heavens and the people. I only know that I took you from Shiri Royal City's young lord first. So at least you wouldn't have to suffer some unnecessary torture. So, when he said this, Ning Chen sized up the woman on the bed, and said with a strange smile, Miss, shouldn't you be grateful as well? And think of a way to repay your benefactor who saved your life? Don't even think about it. Looking at the former's gaze, Xiaji felt her entire body turn cold. She placed her hands in front of her body, and said with a furious expression, Ha! Seeing the woman's intense reaction, Ning Chen laughed and looked away. With a calm expression, he said, Don't be nervous. I didn't have any ulterior motives when I saved you. Although I stopped you from killing the young lord of Shiri Royal City, I don't want you to lose your lives because of this. Recuperate well here. With me here, at least this place is safe. With that, Ning Chen walked to the table, tidied up the medicine jar and the fire in the furnace, and then walked out of the room. On the bed, Xiaji watched the former's back as he left. Her eyes were slightly dazed, and she could not regain her senses for a moment. Outside the room, a beautiful woman dressed in a red veil stood quietly. When she saw the figure walking out, she smiled and said, Master! Miss Jean, you're already free. Why are you still staying here? Do whatever you need to do, and don't let your imagination run wild. Ning Chen looked at the woman in front of him and said, Hong Jin is willing to serve by Master's side for the rest of my life. I hope that Master can grant me my wish. Hong Jin knelt on the ground, and said with a sincere expression. Ning Chen stopped in his tracks, and said with a slight frown, Miss Jean, did you not understand what I said? You're really free now. You don't have to test me anymore. You can't find out my identity, so staying here is pointless. He knew himself well. Hong Jin had only met him once, and her reason for being so insistent on staying was very clear. It seemed like the promise that Shiri Royal City gave Hong Jin was that she would only be set free after completing the mission. That was why she was so insistent. Hong Jin's expression shook when she heard this. He actually knew everything. Since that young lord of yours has already said that he will set you free, then don't let your imagination run wild. I don't know why you're so afraid of Shiri Royal City, but they won't go as far as to make things difficult for a lady like you. At the very least, I still have some value to them now. They won't simply touch you and make me unhappy. Do you understand? Ning Chen immediately made his intentions clear, and said sternly. Hong Jin fell silent after hearing the former's words. After a long while, she bowed respectfully and said, Thank you, young Master Ning. Go. The further you go, the better. Don't ever come back. The world is so big, there's bound to be a place for a lady like you. Ningchen revealed a calm smile and said. Hongjin nodded. She looked at the young man in front of her, as though she wanted to remember the latter in her heart forever. Ningchen smiled, and did not say anything else. Holding the medicinal pot and the furnace fire, he walked forward. Hongjin turned around, and walked towards the other side. The two people who were walking away did not say anything else. Perhaps this was fate that was bound by fate. From now on, they would each take care of themselves. In the room, Xiaji saw this scene with her own eyes, and remained silent. From the words he said to that lady earlier, she could tell that he did not have much of a bias towards Shiri Royal City. Could it be that he really appeared there by coincidence, and that was why he intervened earlier? Not long after, Ningchen came back with a bowl of hot water in his hand. He sat by the bed and handed the water to the lady. He smiled and said, "If you can get up and drink by yourself, you don't need me to feed you. I've never been good at serving people." On the bed, Xiaji forced herself to sit up. She silently took the water and sipped it. "Do you want more?" Seeing that the water in the bowl had been finished, Ningchen took the bowl and asked. Xiaji shook her head, and did not say anything. Ningchen got up, walked to the table, and put the bowl down. He turned around to look at the lady who was half lying on the bed and said, "Miss Xiaji, you are not ordinary people. You should know very well why you became assassins. You assassinated the royal bloodline of Shiri. Even with the protection of that king, the chances of you leaving Shiri Royal City alive are very slim." Xiaji continued to remain silent. She did not say a word, and refused to say anything. Ningchen did not force her. He sat quietly at the table, took out a scroll, and wiped it carefully as usual. The scroll was yellowed, and the traces of time were obvious. However, the scroll was well preserved, without any damage or wrinkles. It could be seen that the owner cherished it very much. When the scroll was opened, a lady as beautiful as a flower came into view. Just like before, she was in the prime of her life, and her beauty shocked the world. 1,000 years was too long. He was worried that he would gradually forget her face. Therefore, he would take it out to look at it every once in a while. Ningchen's gentle gaze was no longer as fierce as before. A smile appeared on his face, as if he was recalling something from a long time ago. A glimpse of her beauty was breathtaking. Xiaji's gaze inadvertently fell on the person in the scroll. A strange look flashed across her eyes. "What a beautiful lady. Who is she to you?" Xiaji could not help but ask. "Wife." Ningchen raised his head, and replied with a smile. Chapter 992. Sunrise Palace. Inside the royal palace, there were thousands of rays of light. An illusory figure stood in front of the throne. His body was surrounded by mist, making it difficult to distinguish his true appearance. King Sunrise was a world-renowned expert. Even in the primitive devil realm where experts were numerous, no one dared to offend him. In the royal palace, a man in black half knelt on the ground and reported respectfully, "Have you found anything?" In front of the throne, King Sunrise asked, "My king, there is no news. This person seems to have appeared out of thin air. No one knows him." The man in black replied, "Oh." In the rays of light, King Sunrise said, "Even you can't find any clues. This person's identity is even more suspicious." "My king, this person saved the young lord's life. We can use this as an excuse to invite him to the royal palace. With my king's cultivation, you should be able to find some clues." The man in black suggested, "I have already asked Yu Yao to invite him. However, this person used the excuse that Miss Xiaji needs someone to take care of her, and temporarily delayed his arrival." King Sunrise said lightly. The man in black narrowed his eyes and said, "It seems that this person is very cautious and vigilant." "Yes." King Sunrise nodded and said calmly, "No hurry. As long as he doesn't leave the royal palace, continue to monitor him under my control. If there is any movement, immediately report back." "Yes." The man in black respectfully accepted the order, and then his figure faded and disappeared. The secret guard left. In front of the throne, the rays of light dissipated, and the figure of the king disappeared without a trace. In the western courtyard of the royal palace, Yu Yao sat in front of the stone table in the courtyard, gently wiping the ancient sword in his hand. He looked meticulous and abnormally focused. In the courtyard, none of the maids came forward to disturb him. The young lord was a person who cherished his sword very much. At this time, if anyone went forward to disturb him, they would definitely make the young lord unhappy. Although the young lord would not get angry easily, it was still very scary when he got angry. Fairy Cloud Ancient Sword, one of the legendary divine weapons of Sunrise Royal City. It was said that it had been stained with the blood of the emperors of the 100 races, and had extraordinary spirituality. Even among the divine weapons of the 100 races, it could be ranked in the top 10. Right at this moment, in the skies above the western courtyard, dense mist gathered. A figure whose entire body was enveloped in multicolored light walked out. Looking at the figure in the courtyard, he calmly said, "Yu Yao, if you have the time, go invite that Mr. Ning over again." In front of the stone table, Nes Yao regained his senses. He carefully placed down the ancient sword in his hands, and looked towards the sky. He calmly said, "Royal Father, for you to be in such a hurry to invite that Mr. Ning over, is there something important?" In the void, King Shiri quietly looked at his legitimate son below. After a while he said indifferently, "What? Do you have any doubts about my decision?" "I don't dare to question you, but father is too impatient, so I can't help but be suspicious," Su Yang said calmly. Hearing this, King Shiri narrowed his eyes and said, "I invited him here just to thank him in person. He saved your life, so I won't do anything to him." Yu Yao revealed a smile on his face and said, "This son understands. If I have the time, I will invite him again. However, this son cannot guarantee whether or not Mr. Ning will come. Just do your best." In the void, King Shiri responded. After that he didn't say anything more. The sky full of multicolored light dissipated, and the figure of the king also disappeared. In the courtyard, the four maids, Meilan, Zhu and Zhu, all looked worried when they heard the conversation between their young master and King Shiri. They could tell that the conversation between the two didn't seem to be so pleasant. In front of the stone table, Nes Yao saw the worried look of the four maids and said with a smile, "Don't think too much. It's okay. My royal father and I just have different attitudes. Father and son usually quarrel, let alone me and him." In the royal city, in a mansion not far from the royal palace, after several days of rest, Summer Solstice's injuries gradually improved. Although her body hadn't fully recovered, she looked fine on the surface. In the mansion, Ning Chen was busy selecting medicinal materials. After being ill for a long time, he had become a good doctor. His knowledge of most of the medicines for wounds was probably not inferior to any doctor. After lying down for several days, Summer Solstice felt uncomfortable all over. She walked out of the room with some difficulty. Seeing the busy figure in the courtyard, she asked, "What time is it?" "It's almost noon." Hearing the movement behind him, Ning Chen looked back and saw the woman walking out. He smiled and said, "Why are you up? How do you feel?" "Much better," Summer Solstice softly replied and stepped forward. Looking at the medicinal materials the former was arranging, she said with a strange expression, "The medicine I've been taking these days, were all made by you?" "Amen." Ning Chen nodded and said with a light smile, "Why? Are you doubting my skills? Are you worried that I'll poison you to death?" "That's not what I meant." Summer Solstice felt that her tone wasn't right. She hurriedly shook her head and denied it. "I just feel that it's strange that you actually know about medicine when your cultivation level is so high. Being ill for a long time makes a good doctor. I've used these medicines in the past, so I'm very familiar with their medicinal properties." "Your injuries look very serious, but actually, the damage to your internal organs isn't that serious. You'll be fine after a few days of rest," Ning Chen said with a smile. Summer Solstice went silent. After a moment she softly said, "Thank you." Hearing this, Ning Chen was startled at first, but he quickly regained his senses. Smiling, he said, "It's really not easy for Miss Summer Solstice to thank me like this. However, I've saved your life. Isn't this a little too little? What else do you want? Summer Solstice deliberately revealed a surprised expression and said, Eh. Seeing the former's reaction, Ningchen revealed a smile and said, It seems that Miss has almost recovered. You've become much more cheerful. I'm only forgiving you for injuring me because you've worked so hard to take care of me these past few days. Summer Solstice squatted down and looked at the pile of medicinal herbs on the ground. She suddenly felt a headache. She didn't recognize any of these things. That's right. What race are you from? Among the 100 races, those that have kings should all be large races. Your identity must be very special. Ningchen turned his head and looked at the girl beside him and asked curiously. It's a secret. I can't tell you. Summer Solstice curled her lips and said. It's fine if you don't want to tell me. I'm just curious anyway. Ningchen casually replied, and then continued to fiddle with his medicinal herbs. These days he had been studying these things and found it quite interesting. No wonder Grandpa Shen-Nong had the perseverance to taste the 100 herbs. Other than his benevolence to save the world, perhaps he also had some desire for unknown knowledge. He wasn't as noble as Grandpa Shen-Nong. He couldn't save the world, but he could still save a girl. Summer Solstice squatted beside him and watched him fiddle with the herbs. After a while, she felt bored. Then what race are you from? In the information about Sunrise Royal City, there's no such person like you at all. Thinking that she was now captured by the person in front of her, Summer Solstice still felt a little unconvinced and asked. It's a secret. Ningchen casually replied. It's fine if you don't want to tell me. I'm just curious too. Summer Solstice said angrily. That's right. Your elder sister wouldn't be so stupid as to come back and save you again, right? Ningchen carefully placed the lingji in his hand into the wooden box he had prepared and casually asked. When Summer Solstice heard this, her white brows instantly frowned. She said a little worriedly. My elder sister is stubborn. She will definitely come back again. Take it. Ningchen threw the wooden box to the former and said. Tell me, are you guys stupid? This is Sunrise Royal City. Even if you succeed, what are the chances of you escaping? Exchanging 2 lives for 1. It's clearly a losing business, yet you guys still insist on doing it. Even if you want to kill that Nest Chazarei, you should find a time when he leaves the city. You're not convinced even if I say you guys are stupid. Summer Solstice hugged the wooden box and snorted coldly with gritted teeth. However, she didn't know how to refute. Speak of Chow Chow. Ningchen stood up, patted the dust off his body and said. Prepare to receive the guest. Who's Chow Chow? Summer Solstice asked a little confusedly. The fastest person in the world. Ningchen casually replied. Then he reminded a little worriedly. That young lord of the royal city is here. You have to endure it. This is his territory. If you continue to cause trouble, I won't be able to save you. I know. Summer Solstice replied with gritted teeth. Brother Ning, this young lord is here again. When the two's words fell, outside the courtyard, Nest Chazarei walked in with an ancient sword in hand. Before he arrived, his voice could already be heard. Not long later, in front of the backyard, Nest Chazarei walked over. When he saw the 2 people in the courtyard, he laughed heartily. You're both here. You sure come frequently. Seeing the former, Summer Solstice's heart was filled with an unknown anger, and she mocked. Royal Father has ordered me to invite Brother Ning to the royal palace. Royal Father's orders cannot be disobeyed. I have no choice either. Nest Chazarei's tone carried a hint of helplessness as he smiled. Jackals of the same lair. Summer Solstice coldly snorted. Miss Summer Solstice's words are wrong. Nest Chazarei lightly laughed and said. I am me, and my royal father is my royal father. I have been unhappy with him for a long time. However, I can't beat him, so I have no choice but to listen to him. Summer Solstice coldly snorted again, and no longer paid any attention to him. Young lord, Miss Summer Solstice's injuries have yet to recover. Let's wait a few more days. Ningchen smiled. Let's not wait, Yu Yao said with a bitter smile. As long as you don't go, I will be constantly urged by royal father. Just go and meet him. This is your first time coming to Sunrise Royal City, and you have saved my life as well. He won't make things difficult for you. That urgent? Ningchen doubtfully asked. It's very urgent. Neschazarei vigorously nodded. Then I can't go even more. Ningchen revealed a look of disdain and said. Even a fool can see that there's something fishy about this. Young lord, your father is the king of the Red Dust Realm, and I can't beat him. If I say something wrong and make your father unhappy, I won't even have the chance to run away. Such a simple logic, even a fool can understand it. Do you think I'm stupid? I'm not stupid, right? Neschazarei was choked to the point that he couldn't say a word. Actually, he also felt that there was something wrong with his royal father's attitude, but he was forced to come out and pass on the message. Mr. Ning, you think too narrow-minded of this king. Just then, a majestic voice rang out from the sky above the mansion. In the next moment, tens of thousands of rays of light converged, and an illusory yet powerful figure walked out. A terrifying pressure swept out, causing the entire world to change color. King Sunrise. Within the mansion, Ningchen looked at the figure that appeared in the void, and his expression turned solemn. Chapter 993. Outside the Sunrise Palace, in a mansion, the king came in person. His unusually powerful aura distorted the world and shocked the whole city. In the backyard of the mansion, Ningchen looked at King Sunrise in the sky with a serious expression. On the side, Summer Solstice's eyes were filled with hatred, and her body trembled unconsciously. Ningchen took half a step forward and blocked her hateful eyes with his body. Father. Yu Yao recovered from the shock and bowed respectfully. Yu Yao, you have disappointed father this time. In the sky, King Sunrise said lightly. Yu Yao was silent and didn't refute. I didn't know King Sunrise would come. Sorry for not coming out to meet you. Ningchen cupped his fists and said calmly. Mr. Ning, you don't have to be so polite. King Sunrise looked at the young man below. His scorching eyes seemed to be able to penetrate people, making people shudder. Behind Ningchen, Summer Solstice trembled more violently. She was filled with hatred and fear. Even in the whole primitive secret realm, a king-level existence was an absolute powerhouse. Except for a few emperors, no one could defeat them. Mr. Ning, the one behind you should be Miss Summer Solstice. You are indeed a blessed girl. Mr. Ning really has an extraordinary vision. King Sunrise looked at the woman behind the plain-clothed young man. His aura was even stronger than before. It was powerful and heavy, like a mountain pressing down. King Sunrise, you flatter me. Summer Solstice, come out and greet Senior King Sunrise. Ningchen looked back and said with a smile. Summer Solstice's body stiffened. After a moment, she calmed down, took half a step forward and bowed silently. The Phoenix clan. I didn't expect this clan to have descendants in the world. Sizing up the woman below, King Shiri sighed softly and said with emotion. Hearing this, Summer Solstice's body trembled. She didn't expect to be recognized at a glance. On the side, Ningchen was also surprised. The Phoenix clan? Wasn't that a close relative of the Phoenix? Didn't that mean that Summer Solstice might know something about the Phoenix? Thinking of this, Ningchen's eyes narrowed. In this case, he couldn't let anything happen to Summer Solstice. Summer Solstice, you are still injured. You can't come out for a long time. Go back. Ningchen looked at the woman beside him and said calmly. Summer Solstice was slightly stunned. She immediately came to her senses and bowed. Then, she turned and walked toward the back room. In the void, King Shiri quietly watched the two of them singing the same tune without interrupting. His purpose today was not Summer Solstice, but the young man in front of him. He could tell Xiaji's identity at a glance, but he could not tell the identity of this young man. In this world, there were people who could hide from his eyes, but not many. He always felt that there was a strange power left on the young man in front of him, and it was this power that made him unable to see through this person. May I know why King Shiri has come to my humble abode? Ningchen did not beat around the bush in front of the sage lord of the Sunrise Royal City. This king has come to discuss a matter with Mr. Ning. King Shiri said calmly. In 10 months, it will be the day when the 100 clans select young generals for the expedition to the realm beyond heaven. My Sunrise Royal City has 2 places. Nest Chazare Union will take one of them, and I want to give the other place to Mr. Ning. Hearing this, Ning Chen's expression didn't change much. He smiled and said, I don't deserve it. This junior thanks Senior King Shiri for your kindness, but this junior is not interested in this matter. A man should fight on the battlefield and make achievements. My primitive secret realm, and the realm beyond heaven will have a great war sooner or later. This is an unfinished war in the Antiquity Age, so it is inevitable. Mr. Ning has such attainments in martial arts at such a young age. In the future, you will definitely shine in the decisive battle between the 2 realms. It will be easy for you to be crowned king. King Shiri said seriously. Ning Chen smiled and said, That's not my ambition. But anyway, this junior has to thank Senior King Shiri again. Above the void, King Shiri narrowed his eyes slightly. He really didn't expect this person to refuse so straightforwardly. This time, the 100 clans had spent a lot of resources to select generals for the expedition to the realm beyond heaven. For the outstanding ones, the rewards were also unprecedentedly amazing. However, the young man in front of him didn't care about it at all, which really made it hard for him to understand. Mr. Ning, please think about it again. 3 days later, I hope Mr. Ning can go to the Sunrise Royal Palace and tell me your final decision in person. After saying this, King Shiri didn't say anything more. His figure dissipated and he left the mansion. After the king left, several people in the mansion were relieved. In the room, Summer Solstice walked out, her hands still trembling slightly unconsciously. Although only a clone of King Shiri came, the unparalleled pressure was still so strong that it made people unable to resist. In the courtyard, Yu Yao took a deep look at the young man in front of him and said, Brother Ning, I have no right to interfere with your decision. However, this is indeed a rare opportunity. Even I didn't expect that my father would give one of the places to you. If possible, I hope Brother Ning can cherish this opportunity. I won't say anything else, and will take my leave first. After saying this, Yu Yao cupped his fists and saluted. He didn't stay any longer and turned to walk out of the mansion. In front of the room, Summer Solstice looked at the figure in the courtyard and frowned again and again. In the war between the 2 realms in the future, the current younger generation would become an indispensable force. The 100 clans attached great importance to this selection. Even a royal family like the Sunrise Royal City only got 2 places. It was easy to imagine how precious it was. King Shiri was willing to give one of the places to an outsider. If it was only because Mr. Ning saved the life of the young lord of the Sunrise Royal City, she would never believe it. What on earth was King Shiri planning? Or, what was this gloomy king plotting? Miss Summer Solstice. In the courtyard, Ning Chen turned back, looked at the woman in front of the room, and said with a smile, Let me ask you something. What's the matter? Summer Solstice came back to her senses and looked at him warily. Seeing the woman's gaze, Ning Chen chuckled and said, I didn't do anything to you. Is there a need to be so cautious? Since the Sunrise Royal City values you so much, I have to be careful. Who knows when you will hand me over to take the credit? Summer Solstice said unhappily. You think too highly of yourself. All right, let me ask you something. Do you know if there are phoenixes in this world? Ning Chen asked seriously. Phoenixes? Summer Solstice frowned and said, Why do you ask this? Ning Chen turned over his right hand and a fiery red phoenix feather appeared. The tiny flames were dancing and it was so beautiful that people couldn't bear to look away. Phoenix feather? Seeing the feather in Ning Chen's hand, Summer Solstice was shocked and said in surprise, Where did you get it? It's a long story. I will tell you when I have time. Miss Summer Solstice, you are a member of the Luan tribe. You should know more about phoenixes than ordinary people. Can you answer my question? Ning Chen asked seriously. Summer Solstice was silent. After thinking for a long time, she replied, Phoenixes did exist in the past, but I don't know if they are still alive in this world. Is there no phoenix tribe among the 100 tribes? Ning Chen asked seriously. No. Summer Solstice shook her head and said, Phoenixes are gods. Even if they exist, there are very few of them. Ningchen looked at the woman in front of him and said seriously, "If I want to know about phoenixes, where can I go to ask? The king of the Luan tribe may know some information, but I can't be sure." Summer Solstice said softly. The king of the Luan tribe. Ningchen narrowed his eyes. If that was the case, the king who fought with King Shiri should be the king of the Luan tribe. It seemed that he had to go to the Luan tribe if he wanted to know more about phoenixes. Summer Solstice. Although I don't know what grudges there are between the Luan tribe and the Sunrise royal family, this King Shiri is not simple. His strength is definitely one of the best among the king-level experts. You have to be careful. Ningchen reminded her seriously. I know. Summer Solstice nodded with a slightly gloomy expression and said, "We were in such a hurry because we had no choice." The Sunrise royal family is the descendant of the ancient three-legged golden crow tribe. They are extremely talented. This generation's King Shiri has the bearing of an emperor. Our king is old and has no hope of breaking through to the emperor level, so he took the risk. Every family has its own difficulties. Ningchen sighed and said, "Let's find a chance to leave the Sunrise royal city first. If your sister risks her life to save you again, I will have a headache." Hearing this, Summer Solstice narrowed her eyes and said, "Why do we have to find a chance? The Sunrise royal city is so respectful to you. Isn't it up to you to decide when to leave? Are you really stupid or pretending to be stupid?" Ningchen said helplessly, "The reason why King Shiri is so polite to me is that I still have value. Once I make the decision to leave, my value will be gone. For a lord like King Shiri who has been in a high position for a long time, there have always been two kinds of people in the world, his own people and his enemies. My choice is directly related to King Shiri's attitude towards us in the future." Hearing this, Summer Solstice was shocked and said, "You mean King Shiri will attack you?" "Who knows? Maybe I'm gauging the heart of a gentleman with my own mean measure." Ningchen smiled and said, "However, I can live until today not only because I'm luckier than ordinary people, but more importantly, I'm more narrow-minded than anyone else. You can pretend to agree to King Shiri's conditions," Summer Solstice suggested. Ningchen sighed and said, "Silly girl, there is something called an oath in this world. If you break an oath, you will be punished by heaven. Only a fool would do that." "I can't do this and I can't do that. What should I do?" Summer Solstice said with a headache. "I don't know. I'm thinking about it." Ningchen answered honestly. In the current situation, they would not be in any danger if they stayed in the city. Once they left without permission, King Shiri's attitude would not be so friendly. If he was alone, it would be fine. If he couldn't win, he could run away. Now that Summer Solstice was a burden, he really had to think of a way. God bless that Dongyu wouldn't come at this time. Just as Ningchen was praying to God, outside the Sunrise royal city, a beautiful figure stepped out in the cold rain. She looked at the city in front of her with unswerving eyes. In order to save her sister, she would step into a dangerous place again. Chapter 994. The Sunrise Imperial City was a divine city where the sun shone brightly, and there was never night. It had been passed down for countless years, and was almost immortal. Outside the city, Dongyu walked over and looked at the imperial city in front of her with a determined expression. At the same time, in a mansion not far from the Sunrise Imperial Palace, Summer Solstice sensed something and her expression changed. "What's wrong?" Ningchen sensed the abnormality of the woman beside him and asked. "Dongyu is here." Summer Solstice looked anxious and said, "Lord Ning, I beg you. You must find a way to save her." Ningchen's eyes darkened when he heard this. What he was afraid of really happened. In the imperial city, Dongyu, who was covered in wind and snow, moved faster and faster. Relying on the telepathic connection between her and Summer Solstice, she quickly rushed toward the mansion in the distance. At the same time, in the imperial palace, King Sunrise appeared in the imperial palace. He looked into the distance and narrowed his eyes. This woman came at the right time. "Summer Solstice, go back to your room and don't say anything." In the mansion, Ningchen looked at the wind and snow that was rapidly approaching from the distance and said. Before he finished speaking, the wind and snow arrived. In the cold air, Dongyu rushed out. Her unusually strong cultivation shocked the world. Her slender hands condensed into frost and turned into steel. Dongyu's figure flashed past with murderous intent. Before the wind and snow, Ning Chen's figure was as different as a mountain. He raised his hand and condensed yuan to meet the attack head-on. Their palms met. In an instant, extremely cold air spread out rapidly. The entire mansion was instantly frozen and turned into a field of ice and snow. The two white figures were covered in snow. They fought fiercely in the world of ice and snow. Their martial arts were so beautiful that it was difficult to look away. The battle between the two powerhouses was shocking. Dongyu's hands were like divine blades that could destroy anything. Her fierce attacks cut open cracks in the world. Facing the attack, Ning Chen moved strangely. His figure wandered in the wind and rain without any panic on his face. In the imperial palace, King Sunrise looked at the battle in the distance. A strange look flashed across his majestic face. Last time, the king of the Luan tribe was holding back, so he couldn't see this young man's moves. Today, he did not let him down. With such a foundation and battle prowess, he was not inferior to a Red Dust Realm expert. If he could represent Sunrise Royal City in the battle, his plan would be able to take a step forward. Far away in the mansion, the battle between the two had reached its climax. With the help of his peerless foundation, Ning Chen's moves were like a god descending to the mortal world. Every move he made was astonishingly powerful. Inside the frozen room, Xie watched the fight between the two. The anxiety on her face grew stronger and stronger. However, her body had not recovered yet, and Ning Chen had given her orders first, so she did not dare to make a sound. Summer solstice. In the battle, Dongyu looked at her sister who was trapped in the room. Her eyes were also filled with anxiety. She attacked even more viciously, wanting to break through the obstacles and save her. The two palms collided, and their silhouettes soared into the sky. The winter rain palm origin energy rose to the sky. The wind and snow were in a frenzy, and the vast palm fell from the sky. 12 styles of spiritual rhino, sky-propping waterfall. The moon-worshipping clan's ultimate skill appeared once again. Ning Chen flipped his palm, and a giant waterfall rose to the sky. The world-shaking power swept across the 8 barren lands, and overturned the heaven and earth. The two extreme powers collided, and the victor was immediately decided. The peerless foundation destroyed all obstacles and landed on Dongyu's chest. A pool of blood splashed out, dyeing the wind and snow red. Dongyu's figure flew dozens of feet away, and crashed into the wall of the mansion. Dongyu! Behind her, Xie's pupils shrank fiercely as she exclaimed. Mr. Ning really doesn't have any pity for the fairer sex. However, this woman has repeatedly caused trouble in our Sunrise Royal City. We can't tolerate her anymore. Mr. Ning, nothing can be accomplished without rules and standards. Please return this woman to our Sunrise Royal City to be punished as a warning to others. Above the void, the multicolored light gathered, and an illusory figure walked out. He glanced at the seriously injured woman not far away and said in a cold tone. Ning Chen's expression turned serious. Looking at the mighty lord of Sunrise Royal City, he said calmly, Senior King Sunrise, the young master of your city has promised to hand these two people over to me. I hope King Sunrise can make an exception this time. What does Mr. Ning need these two sinful slaves for? King Sunrise said indifferently. These two are decent people. I need 2 maids to serve me tea. If Senior King Sunrise can make an exception this time, I will be very grateful. Ning Chen sighed helplessly in his heart, took a step back, and said. King Sunrise looked at the person in front of him. After a long time he said lightly, Since Mr. Ning has asked for mercy, I won't pursue this matter. I hope Mr. Ning's decision won't disappoint me 3 days later. As soon as he finished speaking, the multicolored light in the void dissipated. King Sunrise disappeared and left the mansion. Ning Chen turned around and looked at the seriously injured Dongyu not far away. He waved his right hand, and the ice between heaven and earth dissipated and returned to its original state. Dongyu. After the ice was removed, Xie hurried out and came to Dongyu. She asked anxiously, Are you okay? She's fine. I just scattered her genuine qi temporarily. She will recover after a few days of rest. Ningchen stepped forward, raised his hand, condensed his qi, and poured it into Dongyu's body. Soon, Dongyu opened her eyes and vomited blood again. Looking at the familiar face in front of her, she struggled to get up. You'd better not move. Xie, help your sister back to her room to rest, Ningchen said calmly. Okay. Xie immediately nodded and said, Dongyu, listen to Mr. Ning. Don't move. I'll explain to you what you want to know later. After that, Xie carefully helped the woman beside her up. She nodded to Ningchen and thanked him. Then she helped Dongyu walk to the room in front. Seeing the communication between the two, Dongyu suppressed the doubts in her heart and walked forward step by step with her injured body. In the courtyard, Ningchen looked at the mansion that had been mostly destroyed by the battle and narrowed his eyes. This time, Dongyu really brought him a lot of trouble. He had no choice but to go to King Sunrise's invitation. Mr. Ning. After a long time, Xie walked out of the room. Looking at the figure standing quietly in the courtyard, she said apologetically, I'm sorry to have caused you trouble again this time. Ningchen looked back at the woman behind him and said with a smile, It doesn't matter. Since King Sunrise wants me to go, I'll go. Misfortune and fortune go hand in hand. This trip is not necessarily a bad thing. Xie still looked guilty when she heard this. Originally, Mr. Ning could not be threatened by King Sunrise, but she and Dongyu dragged him down and forced him to make this choice. Miss Xie, you don't have to feel guilty. I have my own plans to save you. After all, in this world not everyone can have two maids who are close to the Red Dust Realm to serve them tea. Ningchen said with a chuckle. Mr. Ning, you're making fun of us again. Xie said softly. She looked at the person in front of her and said softly, Mr. Ning, King Sunrise is very scheming. You must be more careful. Don't worry. Ningchen nodded and said, As long as I'm still useful to King Sunrise, he won't attack me easily. Xie nodded. After a moment of silence, she said, Mr. Ning, if you really want to know something about the Phoenix, Dongyu and I can take you to see the king of our clan in the future. Ha! Ningchen chuckled and said, Thank you very much, Miss Xie. With your promise, I will find a way to take you two out of Sunrise Royal City alive. In the room, Dongyu listened to the conversation of the two people outside. A strange color flashed across her similar, but slightly cold face. It was really hard for her to understand that Xie trusted this person so much after only a few days of getting along. Outside the room, Xie walked back. Looking at the woman on the bed, she said, Dongyu, how do you feel? Much better, Dongyu said softly. She looked at Xie seriously and said, Xie, do you really trust him so much? Xie was silent. After a moment she nodded and said, Mr. Ning is a good person. You will know when you get along with him. Dongyu nodded and did not say more. She did not know whether he was a good person or not, but he was definitely not a simple person. His scheming might be far beyond their imagination. In the courtyard, Ningchen looked at Sunrise Royal Palace in the distance. His calm eyes flashed with thoughts. The trip to the palace in 3 days was not ordinary. He had to face a king of the Red Dust Realm. One wrong move and the consequences would be unimaginable. He was confident that he could stay alive. However, the two women behind him might die here. This was not an outcome he wanted to see. 3 days passed quickly. The agreed date arrived. In the mansion, Ningchen looked at the divine sun above Sunrise Royal Palace and smiled. He had to face what was coming. In front of the room, Xie walked out. She could not hide the worry on her face. A king of the Red Dust Realm was too powerful. Facing such a terrifying existence, she did not even have the confidence to fight back. Mr. Ning. Xie wanted to say something but stopped. Don't worry. Ningchen turned around and looked at the woman behind him. He smiled and said, You and Dongyu stay here. I will be back soon. Xie nodded and said, Be careful. Don't worry. Ningchen replied and didn't delay any longer before walking out of the estate with large strides. Sunrise Royal Palace. In front of the majestic royal palace, thousands of stone steps extended for hundreds of meters. Thousands of royal guards stood on both sides. They were covered in heavy armor and looked mighty. In the royal palace, in front of the high throne, rays of light flowed. The king stood quietly. A powerful pressure filled the entire royal palace. Heaven and earth distorted. It was difficult to withstand the king's pressure. Below, Yu Yao, who was dressed in blue, stood with a sword in his hand. His expression was calm and indifferent, waiting for the person who kept the promise to come. At this moment, at the end of the stone steps, a plain-clothed figure walked over. His steps were steady and unhurried. "He's here." In the palace, Yu Yao looked at the figure walking over. His eyes narrowed. As expected, he came. In front of the throne, King Sunrise's lips curved into an incomprehensible smile. He was very gratified that this person could come. After all, killing a future king of the Red Dust Realm with his own hands was not something to be happy about. Under the gazes of the two, Ningchen walked up the stairs in front of the royal palace. His expression was as calm as water, without the slightest hint of nervousness. After a few breaths, Ningchen walked into the royal palace. Looking at the figure in front of the throne, he politely bowed and said, "Junior Ningchen greets Senior King Sunrise." His words were understated, neither servile nor overbearing. After bowing, Ningchen straightened his body and stood quietly in the royal palace. He was like a sheathed divine sword. Although the sharpness was hidden, it still had the power to slash the sky. Chapter 995. In the Imperial Hall of Sunrise Palace, Jiming came alone to meet the Lord of Sunrise City according to the agreement. In front of the throne, King Sunrise looked at the young man who was neither servile nor overbearing, and a touch of appreciation flashed across his face. Putting everything else aside, this man's courage alone was incomparable to ordinary people. In this world, there were not many people who dared to stand here and face him. "Mr. Ning, you can tell me your decision," King Sunrise said calmly. "I accept Senior King Sunrise's kindness to participate in the selection of the 100 clans on behalf of Sunrise City." Ningchen looked at the king in front of the throne and replied. Hearing this, King Sunrise smiled and said, "Mr. Ning's decision really didn't disappoint me. Guards, bring up the 100 weapons platform." As soon as he finished speaking, 4 King Treading Immortals guards carried a huge stone platform into the hall. On the stone platform, hundreds of weapons were displayed, and each of them was a rare divine weapon with a threatening edge. "I see that Mr. Ning has always been bare-handed. Presumably, you haven't found a suitable weapon. I have some collections in Sunrise City. If Mr. Ning doesn't mind, you can choose one," King Sunrise said calmly. Ningchen looked at the divine weapons on the 100 weapons platform, and light flashed across his eyes. These weapons were really extraordinary. At the side, Yu Yao's gaze swept across the 100 weapons stage. He did not say a single word. His Sunrise Royal City had quite a number of divine weapons, and he could afford to give them away. However, there were also differences between divine weapons. It all depended on whether this Mr. Ning had the foresight. In front of the 100 weapons platform, Ningchen glanced at the divine weapons on the platform. Just as he was about to raise his hand, among the weapons, an ancient cyan sword trembled, and the sword aura flowed. It was extraordinary. Oh! In front of the throne, King Sunrise was surprised to see this. The divine weapon had recognized Mr. Ning as its master. This Mr. Ning was actually a master of swords. Heavenly Rainbow, made of Mother of Green Jade, is the king of weapons. Mr. Ning, you have really impressed me that Heavenly Rainbow has recognized you as its master. While speaking, King Sunrise stepped down from the throne. In an instant the hall trembled, and the endless dense mist shook violently. In front of the 100 weapons platform, Ningchen felt the aura of the Heavenly Rainbow sword. He was silent for a long time, and his outstretched hand never held the ancient sword in front of him. "Brother Ning." Not far away, Nesyao lightly frowned and reminded, "What's wrong? Why aren't you retrieving your sword?" Ningchen didn't answer. He silently walked to the side and picked up a long and narrow black saber. "I choose this one." King Shiri's expression froze slightly. He couldn't figure out the reason. Dark Blade Wild Bone. Not far away, Ness Yao's eyes were similarly filled with confusion. Although Wild Bone was extraordinary, compared to Heavenly Rainbow taking the initiative to recognize him as its master, Heavenly Rainbow was clearly more suitable for Mr. Ning. Mr. Ning, have you really decided? If you haven't decided yet, you can choose again. King Shiri frowned. No need. Ning Chen shook his head and said, I have no fate with the Heavenly Rainbow Godly Sword. Now this black saber is more suitable for me. Since Mr. Ning has decided to choose Wild Bone, then I won't persuade you anymore. The black saber Wild Bone is indeed an extraordinary divine weapon. Mr. has a good eye. King Shiri nodded. This junior thanks Senior King Shiri for generously giving me this weapon. In the 100 Clans competition 10 months later, this junior will definitely do his best and won't let Senior King Shiri down. Ning Chen said with a serious expression. Not to do your best, but to win the first place in the 100 Clans competition and bring back the Yin Yang Non Jade. King Shiri looked at the young man in front of him and said calmly, Mr. Ning, do you understand my words? Ning Chen stared at the king in front of him. After a long time he nodded and said, This junior understands. As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Chen stretched out his hand and swore to the heavens. Every word was witnessed by the heavens. I, Ning Chen, swear to the heavens that I will bring back the Yin Yang Non Jade for Shiri Royal City at all costs. If I violate the oath, I am willing to. As soon as the oath was made, thunder rumbled in the sky above Shiri Royal City, and the rumbling sound resounded throughout the city. In the royal palace, they looked at each other calmly and indifferently. The corners of King Shiri's mouth curled up, gradually revealing a smile. At this moment, in a mansion not far away, Summer Solstice looked at the thunder in the sky with a shocked expression. What was going on? An hour later, in front of the mansion, a figure in plain clothes walked back with a calm expression, no different from when he left. Seeing the former return, Summer Solstice quickly stepped forward and asked with a worried expression, Mr. Ning, are you okay? Ning Chen smiled and said, Do I look like I'm not okay? Well, don't worry. Get ready. We will leave Shiri Royal City tomorrow. We can leave? Summer Solstice asked in surprise. Of course. Ning Chen replied grumpily and said, Why else would I go to see King Shiri? To chat? No, I'm just too happy. Summer Solstice knew that she had said something wrong and quickly smiled apologetically, saying, Thank you, Mr. Ning. I will go and tell Dongyu the news now. With that, Summer Solstice ran to the back room with a happy face. Ning Chen smiled gently. Compared to Dongyu's steadiness, Summer Solstice's personality was obviously more cheerful. However, he liked this girl more. It was easy to get along with her. In the room, Summer Solstice ran over and looked at Dongyu, who was resting on the bed. She said excitedly, Dongyu, we can leave now. Mr. Ning just said it. I've heard it. Dongyu responded. Looking at her younger sister in front of her, she gently reprimanded, Be steady. Don't always make such a fuss. I know. Don't always lecture me. Summer Solstice replied discontentedly. I'm just happy. I thought I would never be able to go back. Fortunately, I met Mr. Ning. Yes. Dongyu nodded and looked through the window at the figure in plain clothes in the courtyard. This Mr. Ning was really powerful. She hoped that they could go back smoothly this time. At the same time, in the palace of King Shiri, Yu Yao looked at his father in front of the throne and said seriously, There are countless talents among the 100 clans, and there are even peerless geniuses of the royal family. Father, don't you think you've gone too far? Why? Are you doubting yourself or that Mr. Ning? In front of the throne, King Shiri said lightly, It's not about who I'm doubting. Yu Yao's expression sank and he said, I swear to the heavens. If I were to break my oath, Royal Father would definitely know the consequences. Mr. Ning has saved this son's life, so Royal Father, if you do this, wouldn't you be framing this son of injustice? This is his own choice. It has nothing to do with you. Yu Yao, know your own identity. You're the young lord of Shiri Royal City. What you have to consider first is the interests of Royal City, not the so-called benevolence and righteousness. King Shiri said coldly. His Royal Highness. Yu Yao's face darkened. After a while, he snorted and turned to leave. I'll try my best to get back the Yin Yang Nanjade. As for what I should consider first, you don't have to worry about it. As he spoke, Yu Yao's figure gradually went away. His unyielding sword was as tall and straight as a mountain. In the palace, King Shiri looked at his son who was going away, and his face became colder and colder. This unfilial son was getting more and more presumptuous. He didn't even take his words seriously. Outside Shiri Royal City, the sun set and the moon rose. A day passed quickly. In the east, when the sun rose again, 3 figures appeared outside Shiri Royal City. After dozens of days, they walked out of the city for the first time. We're finally out. When they walked out of the city gate, Xiaji finally couldn't hold back the excitement in her heart and cheered. Xiaji. Beside her, Dong Yu reprimanded. Xiaji curled her lips and restrained herself a little. However, the excitement on her face was still hard to hide. She looked left and right with unusual excitement. In front of the two, Ningchen smiled faintly. He didn't interfere with the matters between the two sisters. Young Master Ning, where are we going? After being excited for a long time, Xiaji gradually calmed down. She looked at the man in front of her and asked, I'll send you back to the Phoenix clan first. Then, I'll go to the battlefield of the 100 races competition. Ningchen replied. Dong Yu heard this and frowned. Beside her, Xiaji stuck out her tongue embarrassedly. She forgot to tell Dong Yu about this. Mr. Ning, the Phoenix clan has never received outsiders. I'm afraid. Dong Yu said with a troubled expression. Dong Yu. Xiaji said unhappily. Young Master Ning is our savior. Moreover, he just wants to ask a few questions. He'll leave soon. Dong Yu sighed. She didn't want to be so heartless, but rules were rules. How could she make an exception so easily? Miss Dong Yu, there's no need to be troubled. I'll wait outside the Phoenix clan. Once the Phoenix clan king agrees, I'll enter. If it's really impossible, then I'll have to trouble Miss Xiaji and Miss Dong Yu to ask on my behalf, Ningchen said calmly. Dong Yu was silent. After a moment she nodded and said, Mr. Ning, I'm sorry. Miss Dong Yu, there's no need to apologize. Each clan has its own rules. I can understand. Ningchen smiled and replied. Young Master Ning? Behind them, Xiaji spoke with a strange tone. What's wrong? Ningchen looked back, puzzled. You use a saber? Xiaji looked at the saber tied to Ningchen's waist in surprise. Yesterday she was too excited. Only now did she realize that Ningchen had an additional saber. On the side, Dong Yu was helpless. It had already been an entire day. Why did this girl only notice now? I know a little, Ningchen said casually. Hypocrite. Xiaji curled her lips. If you know a little, then I know nothing. Ha. Ningchen chuckled and said. This is a gift from King Shiri. It's called the Wild Bone. It seems to be made from the bones of an ancient ferocious beast. I liked it, so I accepted it. That old monster is so generous. He definitely doesn't have good intentions. Young Master Ning, you didn't agree to his excessive request, did you? Xiaji asked worriedly. No. Ningchen smiled and shook his head. It's just a small matter. All right, let's hurry up. You've been missing for so long. The elders in the clan must be very worried. The earlier you go back, the earlier they can be at ease. Yes. Xiaji nodded obediently. Her excited face revealed a trace of longing. She hadn't gone back for a long time, and was a little homesick. Ningchen looked ahead, deep in thought. The Phoenix clan should have some news about the Phoenix. He hoped that this trip wouldn't disappoint him. Chapter 996. Three Danger Mountain was a majestic divine river that stretched for thousands of miles. It was the legendary secret realm of the Luan clan. For thousands of years, the mountain had been sealed and no one could enter. More than 10 days later, 3 figures walked in front of Three Danger Mountain. The man in the lead had a delicate face. He wore plain clothes and looked untainted by the dust of the mortal world. 300 meters in front of the mountain, Ningchen stopped. He looked at the 2 girls behind him and said, Dong Yu, Xiaji, I'll have to trouble you to go and inform them. Okay. Dong Yu nodded and said softly, Lord Ning, please wait for a moment. After saying that, Dong Yu brought Xiaji and walked towards the divine river. Not long after, they disappeared into the mountain range. In front of the mountain range, Ning Chen's gaze swept across the divine river. A look of surprise flashed across his face. This divine land was truly incomparable to the mortal world. Inside Three Danger Mountain, layers and layers of restrictions were activated. Dong Yu and Xiaji walked in and entered the heart of the Luan clan. The secret realm of the Luan clan was filled with mist. Everywhere was peaceful. In the depths of the secret realm, the king of the Luan clan felt the return of the two girls. He opened his eyes and a look of surprise flashed across his face. The two children had actually returned. Outside Three Danger Mountain, Ningchen stood in front of the mountain and waited quietly. There was no trace of impatience on his face. 2 hours passed. The blazing sun moved westward from the middle of the day to the sunset, but there was still no movement in Mount Three Danger. Right when the last rays of the setting sun disappeared, the space in front of Mount Three Peril swirled, and from the swaying spatial formation markings, a delicate and beautiful figure quickly ran out. In the blink of an eye, she arrived before Ning Chun, pulled his arm, and said joyfully, Hurry up, the king of my clan is willing to see you. A smile appeared on Ning Chen's face as he allowed Xiaji to drag him along. Together, they walked into the space array. In the blink of an eye, the space in front of the mountain range shook. The two figures faded and disappeared. In the secret realm of the Luan clan, two figures appeared. Xiaji grabbed the arm of the person beside her and quickly walked forward. Hurry up, our king is still waiting. Summer Solstice urged as she dragged the former forward. I'm already very fast. Ning Chun was dragged until he could not change his pace. There was a faint helplessness in his expression as he spoke. In the deepest part of Mount Sanwei, in the Qingyu abyss, green starlight filled the air. Summer Solstice pulled Ning Chun and walked over quickly. In front of them, a woman who looked the same as Summer Solstice stood quietly. It was Dong Yu who came back first. Where's the king? Summer Solstice looked at Winter Rain in front of her and asked in confusion. They will be here soon. Dong Yu said softly. Before he could finish his words, the green stars in the sky suddenly flew up, and an unusually strong pressure descended. In the floating mist, a beautiful figure shrouded in green light walked out, graceful and elegant, with an extraordinary temperament. King. Seeing the visitor, Xiaji and Dong Yu saluted at the same time with respectful expressions. Beside the two girls, Ning Chen looked at the noble lady who had appeared in front of them. He bowed politely and said, Greetings, Queen Luan. Within the green light, King Luan sized up the young man in front of him and said, That day I saw you. Ning Chen nodded and said, When Queen Luan fought with King Shiri, I was indeed in Shiri City. Why did you save Summer Solstice and Dong Yu? If you hand them over to King Shiri, you should be able to get more benefits, King Luan said calmly. I don't lack these benefits, Ning Chen said calmly. Mr. Ning's confidence has left me with a whole new level of respect. Coldness flashed across King Luan's face. He said, Can I understand that as long as King Shiri offers enough benefits, Mr. Ning will not hesitate to hand over Summer Solstice and Dong Yu? Ning Chen was not swayed at all. He said calmly, Queen Luan's assumption is meaningless. Now Summer Solstice and Dong Yu have returned safely. This is the truth. King Luan stared at the young man in front of him. After a long time, his cold expression gradually eased. He was neither servile nor overbearing. What do you want to know? King Luan asked. Information about the phoenixes, Ning Chun said seriously. Hearing this, King Luan narrowed his eyes slightly and said, The phoenixes have disappeared from this world for tens of thousands of years. Why do you still want to know about them? The phoenixes are reborn from the ashes. They can't really die, Ning Chun said calmly. There is nothing in this world that is truly immortal. The phoenixes are the same. Mr. Ning, what you know is just a legend. It is not credible, King Luan said lightly. If I can prove that the phoenixes are still alive, will King Luan tell me the information you know? Ning Chen looked at King Luan and asked seriously, How do you want to prove it? I know that you have a phoenix feather. However, this doesn't prove anything. King Wan frowned slightly and said, as long as King Wan agrees to tell me the information about the phoenixes, I have my ways to prove it, Ning Chun said seriously. Hearing this, King Wan frowned again. After a long time, he nodded and said, as long as you can prove that the phoenixes are still alive in this world, I will agree to your conditions. Thank you. Ning Chun bowed respectfully and said, I need some time to prepare. I hope King Wan can be patient for a few days. Sure. King Wan nodded and looked at the two women below. He said, Dongyu Summer Solstice, you can go and rest on behalf of Mr. Ning. Treat him well, and don't be rude. Yes. Dongyu and Summer Solstice bowed together and replied respectfully. Ning Chun bowed once more before he turned around and left with the two women. After the three of them left the Green Rain Abyss, Dongyu and Summer Solstice secretly sighed in relief. They could finally relax. You scared me to death. Summer Solstice patted her chest and said, why are you two more nervous than me? Ning Chun smiled. Of course we brought you in. If you said something wrong and made King Wan unhappy, we would be in trouble. Summer Solstice said with lingering fear. Ning Chun smiled and said, King Wan is not as scary as you said. Perhaps you have all misunderstood her. Summer Solstice heard this and looked at him strangely. She said, this is the first time you have met King Wan. Why do you sound like you know her better than we do? I'm just guessing. Ning Chun smiled and replied casually without explaining further. Summer Solstice looked at him with a puzzled expression. Seeing that he did not say anything, she looked at Dongyu with a questioning look. Let's take Mr. Ning to rest first. If you have any questions, you can ask him later. Dongyu replied calmly. Summer Solstice curled her lips and suppressed the doubts in her heart. She was no longer in a hurry to ask. The three of them walked in the Luan clan's secret territory. It was like spring all year round. Birds sang and flowers bloomed. The spiritual energy was abnormally dense, making people feel relaxed and happy. However, in such a rare secret territory, there were very few people. The Luan clan had a long lifespan, but their ability to reproduce was extremely poor. When the Luan clan was at its most prosperous, there were only about 1,000 people. Now there were less than half of that number. Along the way, Ning Chun looked at the big and small ancient buildings in the Luan clan's secret territory. He carefully scanned them with his spiritual sense, and was more and more surprised. There were only so few people in the Luan clan. He had heard that the stronger the clan, the worse their reproductive ability. However, he did not expect that the Luan clan as a royal clan had less than 500 people. We are here. My house is in front. In front of a small river, Summer Solstice happily pointed at a row of wooden houses by the river. Ning Chun's gaze followed the direction of the woman's finger. He saw a plainly dressed woman drying clothes on a bamboo pole. She looked no different from an ordinary person. Mortal realm? Ning Chun's eyes narrowed. Was he mistaken? In front of the river, the woman looked back and saw the three of them walking over. A gentle smile appeared on her delicate face. She said, You're back. Mother. Summer Solstice quickly ran over and hugged the woman's arm. She happily said, Did you miss me? Be gentle. Mother's old bones have been shaken by you. The woman gently patted her daughter's head and smiled. Mother is not old. Summer Solstice giggled. She looked at Ning Chun beside Dongyu and said, Mother, this is young Master Ning. Dongyu and I were able to return this time because of young Master Ning's help. Greetings, madam. Ning Chun walked forward and bowed respectfully. You don't have to be so polite, Mr. Ning. Mr. came from afar and must be tired. Summer Solstice, take Mr. Ning back to his room to rest. The woman smiled. Okay. Summer Solstice smiled and said, Young Master Ning, come with me. Thank you, madam. Ning Chun thanked her and immediately followed Summer Solstice to the wooden house on the side. After the two left, Dongyu walked forward. She looked at her mother and softly said, Mother. The woman nodded with a gentle expression and said, Is there something on your mind? Dongyu glanced at the two people walking into the wooden house and said with a worried expression, Summer solstice seems to like this Mr. Ning. I'm worried that summer solstice will be hurt. The woman put down the clothes in her hand, and a smile appeared on her delicate face. She said, Mr. Ning saved your life, so it's not strange that summer solstice is close to him. Young girls all have the experience of worshipping heroes. Your little sister is inexperienced and can't distinguish between worshipping and liking. Once she experiences more in the future, she will understand. All right, you've been tired for several days. Go back to your room and rest. Mother will prepare some food for you. Okay. Dongyu gathered her thoughts and gently nodded. She stepped forward and walked towards the wooden house. Inside the wooden house, Summer Solstice pointed to the innermost room and said softly, "That's yours." After saying that, Summer Solstice pointed to the room next door and said with a smile, "That's mine." Okay. Ningchen smiled and immediately walked towards the room that Summer Solstice had arranged for him. Just as Ningchen walked into his room and was about to rest, Summer Solstice followed behind him with a smile. "What's the matter?" Ningchen smiled. "Nothing." Summer Solstice walked into the room and looked around. Finally, she couldn't resist the curiosity in her heart and whispered, "Young Master Ning, how are you going to prove to my king that Phoenix is still alive?" "You'll know in a few days." Ningchen laughed softly. Summer Solstice curled her lips and said unhappily, "Forget it if you don't want to say it. Stingy." Ningchen smiled and waved his hand saying, "Come here, I'll tell you. Don't tell anyone else." Summer Solstice heard this and her eyes lit up. She hurried forward and said confidently, "Tell me, I definitely won't tell anyone else." Actually, Ningchen lowered his voice and whispered, "I am Phoenix." Chapter 997. Three Danger Mountain, the Luan clan's secret realm. It was not a prosperous place, but it was a peaceful paradise. All the Luan clansmen lived a peaceful and ordinary life, standing aloof from worldly affairs. In the secret realm, a small river ran through the entire east and west. Beside the river, there were rows of wooden houses. In front of one of the wooden houses, a beautiful woman was busy going in and out without stopping for a moment. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and the sky had already darkened. The woman brought the prepared food into the wooden house, then walked to the room of her two daughters, and called out Dongyu and Xiaji. "Xiaji, call Mr. Ning to come out and eat." The woman glanced at her daughter, who was staring at the food with a greedy expression, and said with a gentle expression, Okay." Xiaji came back to her senses and quickly nodded. She turned and walked to the innermost room. Creak. At this moment, the door opened, and Ning Chen, dressed in white, walked out. Seeing Xiaji, he smiled and said, "It smells so good." "Of course, my mother's cooking is the best." Xiaji proudly raised her head, as if she was the one being praised. "Mr. Ning, come and eat. It's all simple tea and plain food. I hope you can get used to it." The woman turned around and smiled at the two. "Madam is too polite." Ningchen walked forward and looked at the steaming hot food on the table. He sighed inexplicably in his heart. It had been a long time since he had eaten such a home-cooked meal. These years, he had been running around and had almost forgotten what simple tea and plain food tasted like. "Sit down and try it. My mother's cooking is very fragrant." Beside him, Summer Solstice reached out and pressed the former to the seat, urging with a hopeful look. Opposite them, the woman and Dongyu also sat down and picked up their bowls and chopsticks to eat. Xiaji consciously sat beside Ningchen and stared at him with her big eyes, waiting for an answer. Ningchen picked up some food and put it into his mouth. After tasting it, he gave the girl beside him a thumbs up and praised, "Delicious." Xiaji smiled when she heard this. She then picked up her bowl and chopsticks in satisfaction, and began to eat happily. Seeing this, the woman smiled softly and did not say anything. On the other hand, Dongyu frowned slightly, worried about her sister. "Dongyu, what's wrong?" Xiaji glanced at the former and asked in confusion. "I'm fine." Dongyu calmed himself down and responded indifferently. Then he lowered his head and began to eat. Xiaji looked at her mother and Ningchen in confusion. Seeing that there was nothing wrong with them, She didn't take it seriously and continued to eat happily. After finishing a bowl of rice, Ningchen asked for another bowl. Summer Solstice volunteered to serve him rice, which surprised Dongyu. Usually, at home, she and her mother were the ones who scooped the rice. This girl had never done it even once. Here. Xia Ji came back with a bowl of rice, handed it to the people around her, and said happily, "Thank you, Miss Xia Ji." Ningchen smiled. The dinner lasted for almost an hour. Other than Dongyu, the other 3 people at the table seemed to be in a good mood. After dinner, Ningchen got up and wanted to help clean up, but the woman shook her head and refused. "Young master, please rest. These are not things that a man should do." The woman said with a smile and asked Dongyu and Xia Ji to help clean up the table. The whole family talked and laughed, and the atmosphere was very good. Ningchen stood there, quietly feeling the rare warm atmosphere. A smile appeared on his calm face. Being ordinary was a blessing. He hoped that Xia Ji's family could be so happy forever. Outside the wooden house, the bright moon rose from the east. The night was slightly cold, but it was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. The moonlight shone on the small river, reflecting the bright moon. It was a paradise that stood aloof from worldly affairs. Without the disputes of the secular world, everything looked so peaceful. Ningchen walked to the front of the wooden house and looked at the beautiful scenery outside. Gradually, his eyes lost focus. "It's cold at night. Mr. Ning, please rest early." Unknowingly, the woman appeared in front of the wooden house and said gently. Ningchen came back to his senses. Looking at the woman beside him, he said respectfully, "Thank you for your hospitality today." The woman smiled and said, "Mr. Ning, you don't have to be so polite. You are the savior of Dongyu and Xia Ji. This is what I should do." Dongyu and Xia Ji are good girls. However, I don't understand why the Luan king chose them to assassinate the young master of the Sunrise Royal City. Ningchen expressed his doubts. The woman looked at the peaceful night and said softly, "What do you think of this place, Mr. Ning?" "It's a peaceful place," Ningchen said honestly. "It is indeed peaceful here. However, Mr. Ning should have noticed that there are not many men left in this secret realm." The woman's eyes flashed with emotion. She said, "Behind any peace is blood and sacrifice. The Luan clan is no exception. Now that most of the men of my clan have died in battle, for the peace of this secret realm, the remaining women have no choice but to go out and fight." Hearing this, Ningchen fell silent. Everyone had an inviolable taboo in their hearts. Peace was hard to come by. "It's late. Mr. Ning, you should rest early." The woman collected her thoughts and looked at the young man beside her with a smile. "Okay." Ningchen nodded. Just as he was about to return to his room, he stopped and asked, "Madam, are you in the Red Dust Realm?" The woman smiled and nodded. "I have been in the Red Dust Realm for 1,000 years. The members of the Luan clan have a long lifespan. It's not difficult for me to enter the Red Dust Realm. However, I'm not good at martial arts. Even if I enter the Red Dust Realm, I won't be young master's opponent. Madam is too modest." Ningchen softly replied. He did not say anything else. He bowed and immediately walked back into the wooden house. In the space outside the 33 heavens, the Reverence Moon holy ground. On the altar, the red-robed phoenix stood quietly. It passed through the distant space and felt the call from afar. "I will be away for a few days. Protect the holy ground carefully." The red-robed young man looked at the several experts of the Reverence Moon clan below and said, "Yes." The 4 experts of the Reverence Moon clan bowed respectfully and acknowledged the order. In the next moment, the divine restriction above the Reverence Moon holy ground opened. The phoenix spread its wings and flew away at lightning speed. Its speed surpassed the limits of heaven and earth. It was like a bolt of red lightning cutting through space. It was so fast that people couldn't even see its afterimages. Before they could react, it had already disappeared into the depths of space. In the Luan clan's secret territory, Ningchen waited quietly for the phoenix body's arrival. There was no trace of anxiety on his face. On the 7th day, phoenix flames filled the air in front of the 3 Danger Mountain. A red-robed figure walked out from the flames and stopped when he saw the secret territory covered with runes. After waiting for a while, the void in front of the mountain range rippled, and a white-robed figure appeared. Behind her, two beautiful women walked out together. The moment they saw her, Dong Yu and Xia Ji were stunned. They couldn't recover from their shock. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.